Story 1.
The one responsible thing my wife did after cheating on me became the exact thing that ended our marriage. She got an STD test to protect me, and that single act of conscience was the receipt I never asked for but couldn't unsee. So here's what happened. My wife went to Vegas for a friend's bachelorette week, came back a different person, and I found a hospital bill for an STD screening hidden in her purse. She confessed everything. And I made her believe that confessing to our families would save us, but what she didn't know was that I already had divorce papers in my back pocket. The confession wasn't reconciliation. It was sentencing. I'm 37 male. My wife is Dove, also 37, 16 years together, gone. Priya is the bride whose bachelorette party started all of this. Arjun is my divorce lawyer, an old school junior. And Neil is my best friend who let me crash at his place, recently divorced himself, so he knew the drill. Dove and I met when we were 21. College sweethearts, the kind people point to at weddings and say, times see it does happen, asterisk. 16 years. A son. A house with a garden she designed herself, every plant chosen because it meant something. Jasmine for devotion. Lavender for calm. I used to joke that our backyard was a love letter I couldn't read. I need you to understand that before I tell you what she did. The Vegas trip was Priya's idea. Priya, who I'd met exactly twice, and both times left the conversation feeling like I'd been assessed and dismissed. She was Dove's school friend, the kind of friend who resurfaces every few years, with an energy that rearranges the furniture in your wife's personality. When Dove told me it was a full week in Vegas for Priya's bachelorette, I raised an eyebrow. 1 week seemed excessive. Dove laughed and said Priya doesn't do anything small. I said fine. I trusted her. That's not a figure of speech. I trusted Dove the way you trust the ground beneath your feet. You don't think about it. You just walk. She flew out on a Saturday. The first 2 days, normal texts. Photos of the group at dinner at the pool, matching robes. Day 3, the texts got shorter. Day 4, she called me at midnight, voice thick, and said she missed me. Something in the way she said it made my chest tighten, but I told myself it was wine and distance. Day 5, almost nothing. Day 6, a single heart emoji at 11 p.m. Day 7, she came home. I picked her up at the airport. She hugged me like she was trying to climb inside my ribcage, and then she pulled away too fast. In the car, she stared out the window. I asked about the trip. She said it was fun. I asked about Priya. She said Priya was happy. I asked if something was wrong. She said she was just tired. That night, I reached for her in bed. She flinched. Actually flinched. Her shoulder jerked away from my hand like I'd touched a burn. She apologized immediately, said her back was sore from the flight. I let it go. 3 days passed. She moved through the house like a ghost wearing my wife's clothes. Cooked dinner but didn't eat. Played with our son, but her laughter had a half-second delay like she was translating from a language she'd forgotten. She showered twice a day, long showers, door locked, which she'd never done. And she wouldn't look at me. Not really. Her eyes would land somewhere near my face and slide off like I was too bright to stare at directly. On the 4th day, I found it. I wasn't snooping. I want that on the record. She'd asked me to grab her wallet from her purse because the delivery guy was at the door. I opened the bag, moved aside, a makeup pouch, and there it was. A folded hospital bill from a clinic 15 minutes from our house. STD panel. Comprehensive. Booked. The day after she landed. My hands went still. The delivery guy rang the bell again. I stood in our hallway holding that piece of paper, and the house went completely silent inside my skull, like someone had pulled a plug. I paid for the food. I put the bill back exactly where I found it. I ate dinner across from her and tasted nothing. That night, I lay beside her and stared at the ceiling for 6 hours straight. The next morning, I started looking. Her phone, nothing. She'd wiped it clean, which was itself a confession. Her Instagram DMs, nothing. Her call log, nothing except a 40-minute call to Priya the night she came back. I checked our shared credit card. Normal charges, restaurants, a spa, a club. Nothing that screamed infidelity, but the STD test screamed it. One piece of evidence sitting alone in a field of silence louder than 100 texts could have been. I went online. I read forums, threads, stories from men who'd found exactly what I found. The pattern was surgical in its consistency, the distance, the flinching, the excessive showering, the phone wipe. I wasn't special. I wasn't an exception. I was a statistic. By the 5th night, I couldn't carry it anymore. We were at the dinner table. Our son was at my mother's for the evening. Dove was pushing rice around her plate, and I watched her hand tremble just slightly, just enough, and I felt something in me snap clean through. How was your STD test? 4 words. Her fork stopped midair. The color left her face in a wave top to bottom like watching a tide go out. She didn't ask times, "What are you talking about, asterisk?" She didn't deny it. She set the fork down with a precision that told me she'd been rehearsing this moment in her head for days. And then she told me everything. The bachelorette group went to a male strip club. Priya's idea. Things escalated. Private rooms. An intimate massage that Dove swore she tried to stop, but didn't. And then because she told herself the line was already crossed, she didn't stop what came after either. One night, one man. She said his name and I held up my hand because I physically could not hear it. She was sobbing. Shaking. She said Priya had pressured everyone that she'd been drinking, that she hated herself, that getting the test was the first thing she did because she couldn't bear the thought of hurting me that way too. I sat there, very still. And behind the devastation, something cold and architectural was already forming in my mind. The next evening, Arjun, my old school junior, now a divorce lawyer, asked me to meet for a drink. So the last evening, Dove confessed her cheating, and the next evening, I was sitting with my lawyer and discussing my divorce. He asked me to sleep over my decision and see if the emotion subsided, and I decided to give her a chance. I told him that I was mindfully making this decision. I relayed my divorce terms to him, and he assured me of starting the paperwork immediately. I requested him to fast-track the process because I want to get done with it as soon as possible. Anyone who heard me would have assumed I was making an impulsive decision, but I was not. I love Dove, but not more than my self-respect. I told him that I trusted Dove with my life, and if I'm taking this decision, it is definitely severe. I cannot let her get away with the cheating. The papers would be ready in 72 hours. I drove home. Dove was sitting on the couch, eyes swollen, waiting. She asked if I'd left her. I sat down beside her. I took her hand, and I told her there was a way we could survive this, but only if she was brave enough to confess everything in person to both our families. Her eyes searched my face for the trap. She didn't find it. She said yes. I spent the next 3 days being the husband she thought she still had. I cooked for her. I let her fall asleep with her head on my shoulder while we watched television. On the second night, she reached for me in bed, tentative, trembling, her fingers tracing my collarbone like she was asking permission to exist near me, and I let her. I held her afterward while she cried into my chest and whispered times, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," times like a prayer she'd been saving. I stroked her hair and stared at the wall behind her and felt absolutely nothing. That's not true. I felt something. I felt the architectural thing, the cold scaffolding I'd been building since the dinner table lock into its final position. On the third morning, Arjun texted me a single word times, ready, asterisk. I called both sets of parents that afternoon. Told them we needed a family sit-down, something important. My mother asked if everything was okay. I said Dove and I had something to share. Dove's mother asked the same question, and Dove, standing beside me gripping the kitchen counter, said yes, everything would be okay, that this was about healing. Healing. She actually used that word. We held it at our house, the garden house. Jasmine and lavender in full bloom outside the windows, the whole backyard, exhaling devotion and calm, while I arranged chairs in the living room like a courtroom gallery. My parents arrived first, then hers. Her father shook my hand at the door and said, "Whatever this is, I'm glad you two are facing it together." I smiled at him. I have never hated myself more than in that specific smile. Dove sat in the center of the room. I sat beside her, close supportive, my hand on her knee. The families watched us, with the nervous reverence people reserve for couples announcing pregnancies or diagnoses. Dove looked at me. I nodded. She began. She told them everything. The strip club, the private room, the massage that became something else, the man whose name I still cannot hear. She told them about the drinking, about Priya's pressure, about the moment she decided the line was already crossed, so she might as well keep walking. She told them about the STD test, that she'd gotten it immediately, that she'd wanted to protect me even while destroying me. She told them she was sorry. She told them she loved me. She told them I had given her the chance to earn forgiveness by being honest here, in front of everyone, and that she was taking it because I was the only thing in her life worth being brave for. Her mother was crying. Her father's jaw was set so tight I could see the vein in his temple. My mother had her hand over her mouth. My father stared at the floor. Dove finished. She turned to me, eyes raw, face open, and she looked, "God help me," times relieved, asterisk, like she'd climbed the mountain, like the worst was over. I reached into the bag beside my chair and pulled out the envelope. "These are the divorce papers," I said. Arjun drafted them. "The terms are fair. I'm not asking for the house. I'm not contesting custody. We'll share it equally. I want this settled in 45 days. The room didn't gasp. It didn't erupt. It simply stopped the way a heart stops, one moment of rhythm, and then silence so complete you can hear the blood settling. Dove stared at the envelope. Then at me. Then at the envelope again. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I watched her eyes track backward through the last 3 days, the cooking, the shoulder, the night in bed, the times, thank you, thank you, thank you times, and I watched her understand. "You planned this," she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She signed immediately. No argument, no negotiation, no scene. She took the pen from the table, opened to the flagged pages, and signed her name in handwriting so steady it terrified me. Then she set the pen down, stood up, and walked to the bedroom. The door closed with a click. Her parents left without speaking to me. Her father paused at the threshold and looked back, not with anger, but with something worse. Recognition. Like he understood exactly what I'd done and exactly why, and the understanding gave him no comfort at all. My mother touched my arm and said, "Was this necessary?" I said yes. She didn't ask again. The divorce settled in 45 days. Uncontested. Arjun handled everything with the quiet efficiency of a man who'd seen the surgery before and knew which cuts were clean and which ones scarred. Dove and I communicated through lawyers. She never called. Never texted. Never showed up at Neil's apartment where I'd been sleeping on an air mattress surrounded by another man's divorce boxes. The silence from her was so total it had its own weight, its own weather. We passed each other once at the courthouse. She was wearing the blue kurta I'd bought her for our anniversary. I don't know if that was deliberate. I don't know which answer would be worse. She looked at me. Times looked not the sliding off gaze from before, and I saw something in her face that I will carry until I die. Not hatred, not grief, comprehension. She understood me completely, finally, and the understanding was the loneliest thing I'd ever seen. I drove home Neil's home and sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes. Here is what I know. I love Dove. I love Dove. Those are not contradictory statements, and they do not change anything. I engineered her humiliation in front of the people she loved most because I needed her to feel publicly and irreversibly the weight of what she'd done. I told myself it was self-respect. Maybe it was. Maybe self-respect and cruelty share a border so thin you can't see it until you've already crossed. My son starts kindergarten in September. He will grow up shuttling between 2 houses, 2 bedrooms, 2 versions of why mommy and daddy don't live together anymore. I will have to build him an answer that doesn't include the word times, revenge times, even though some nights alone on that air mattress, I suspect that's exactly what it was. The jasmine in the garden is still blooming. I drove past the house last week. She hasn't pulled it out. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I want to.
Story 2.
My wife told her ex-boyfriend that I love her too much to ever leave, and they both laughed about it. She didn't know I was listening to every single word. So my wife is a social media influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers, and I caught her carrying on a full-blown affair with the ex she swore was out of her life forever. But instead of confronting her right away, I spent weeks collecting every conversation, every lie, every mocking little comment she made about me, and then I used her own playbook against her. The woman who built her career on cameras forgot that cameras work both ways. I'm a 28-year-old data analyst. My wife is Bianca, 27 influencer, brand ambassador, and apparently a world-class liar. The guy she's been sneaking around with is Marcus, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years, who conveniently works at one of the brands she promotes. And my best friend Derek, he's the one who helped me document everything when the time came. Let me give you some background first. I've been cheated on before. Not by Bianca, by a girlfriend in college who spent 6 months making me feel insane for questioning her late nights and locked phone. When the truth finally came out, the betrayal wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing I'd seen every sign and talked myself out of believing my own eyes. I promised myself I'd never do that again. Bianca and I got married 2 years ago after dating for 3. She was already building her platform when we met: lifestyle content, brand partnerships, the whole ecosystem. I didn't mind being part of it. She'd film us cooking together, doing couples Q&As, little date night vlogs. Her followers ate it up. Couple goals, they'd comment. He looks at her like she's the whole universe. And honestly, I did. I was in love with the version of Bianca she showed me, and I thought that version was real. About a year into our marriage, Marcus resurfaced. They dated for 3 years before me, and she always described the breakup as mutual but messy. When his name popped up in her DMs because he'd gotten hired at one of the brands she promoted, she showed me the message herself. Unprompted. "Look, babe, small world," she said, rolling her eyes. I asked if it would be weird. She kissed my forehead and said, "He's nobody. That chapter's been closed for years." I believed her. Because I wanted to. 4 weeks ago, Bianca started working from home more frequently. New content strategy, she said, more authentic, less studio polished. I work remotely too, so in theory, this should have brought us closer. More lunches together, more random coffee breaks, more of the easy intimacy that makes a marriage feel alive. Instead, something shifted. It started small. I'd walk into the living room and she'd switch apps so fast her thumb blurred across the screen. I'd come up behind her at her desk and she'd slam her laptop shut, then laugh it off. Surprise collab, babe. Can't spoil it. The first time I shrugged. The second time my stomach tightened. By the fifth time, that old alarm system, the one I built in college and never fully dismantled, was screaming. I brought it up gently. You've been kind of guarded with your phone lately. Everything okay? And here's what got me. She didn't get defensive. She overcorrected, handed me her phone with this open-wounded expression, scrolled through her recent text like she was presenting evidence of her own innocence. See nothing. You can look at anything you want. Every conversation was clean, sanitized. The kind of clean that doesn't happen naturally. That's when I knew. A week later, we went to a get-together with some of her influencer friends. Bianca spent the entire dinner texting under the table. Between bites, between sentences, sometimes mid-sentence. Her friend Tara asked her a question and Bianca didn't even hear it, just sat there smiling at her screen with a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. When she caught me watching, she locked the phone and said, "Sorry, Brand, emergency." That night after she fell asleep, I made a decision. Not an emotional one, a calculated one. I'm a data analyst. Pattern recognition is literally what I do for a living. So I installed a mirroring app on both our phones, hers during a shower the next morning, mine as the receiving end. Everything synced. Messages, call logs, app, activity. Within 48 hours, I had the full picture. Bianca was in daily contact with Marcus. Not professional contact. The messages were intimate, explicit, laced with inside jokes and pet names. I guess their love rekindled when he came back into the picture. They'd been seeing each other for at least 2 months. He knew my work schedule. He knew which days I had late meetings. He knew when I went to the gym. But the call, the intercepted call, that's what broke something inside me permanently. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Bianca told me she forgot to grab groceries and needed to run out. I watched her drive away, then opened the mirroring app and listened in real time as she called Marcus from the parking lot of a Whole Foods she never walked into. They talked for 22 minutes. She complained about having to perform for me. Marcus laughed and called me the safety net. And then Bianca said the words that I will hear for the rest of my life. Jackie would never leave me. He loves me too much. Poor thing. Marcus laughed. She laughed. And something behind my ribs went cold and quiet. Now the thing is, I'm so sure Bianca is not supposed to be involved with any of the company's staff or bad-mouthing the company. During that same call, they trashed the brand. Marcus venting about management, Bianca mocking the products she smiles about in sponsored posts. If the organization finds out, her contract will be terminated and her image will be tarnished. That night, Bianca told me she was going out for girls' night. I said, "Have fun, babe." I kissed her cheek. She smiled that influencer smile, warm, effortless, completely hollow. Then I called Derek. We followed her to a restaurant downtown. Not a club, not a bar, a quiet Italian place with dim lighting and corner booths, the kind of place you take someone you're not hiding from yourself, just from everyone else. Derek had his camera ready. We walked in through the side entrance and found them in the back. Bianca was tucked under Marcus's arm, her head against his shoulder, his hand on her thigh. She was laughing at something on his phone. The same laugh from the intercepted call. I stood there for 10 seconds. Derek recorded everything. Then I walked up to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down across from them. Bianca's face went white. Marcus froze mid-sip. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked at her and said, "Poor thing showed up." Regarding the video my friend made, I haven't posted it online as intended because I have mixed feelings about it. For the past years, Bianca has maintained an excellent public image. And even though she gets dragged online by some of her annoying fans, she has not had any serious issues with the brands she influences. Right now, I'm going through so much emotionally, and I want to repay her for using me like that. I intend to leak the conversation between Bianca and her boyfriend and the video of them together. I have the intercepted calls where they trash the brand. I have the restaurant footage. I have every deleted message she thought was gone forever. The woman who built her empire on cameras is about to learn that cameras work both ways. I sat with those mixed feelings for 3 days. For the past years, Bianca had maintained an excellent public image. And even though she gets dragged online by some of her annoying fans, she had not had any serious issues with the brand she influences. Part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I'd married, hesitated. Right now, I was going through so much emotionally, and every hour, the weight shifted between grief and something sharper. Something with teeth. But then I'd hear it again. Asterisk. Poor thing. Asterisk. The laughter that followed. The casual cruelty of two people who'd turned my devotion into a punchline. I wanted to repay her for using me like that. So I stopped having mixed feelings. I started with her parents. I sent them a carefully compiled folder, the restaurant video screenshots of the intercepted messages, and the audio from the Whole Foods parking lot call. No commentary, no emotional plea. Just evidence time-stamped and organized because that's what I do. I'm a data analyst. I let the data speak. Her mother called me within an hour, sobbing. Her father didn't call at all. He texted one line times, "I'm sorry, son," asterisk. Then I went public. I uploaded the restaurant footage to every platform Bianca had built her empire on. Derek helped me cut it clean. No narration, no captions, just the raw 30-second clip of my wife nestled under another man's arm in a candlelit booth, followed by the moment she looked up and saw me standing there. Her expression alone told the entire story. The blood draining from her face. The mouth opening and closing with no sound coming out. The hand pulling away from Marcus's thigh a full 3 seconds too late. Alongside the video, I posted the intercepted call excerpts. Not the intimate parts. I wasn't trying to humiliate her sexually. I posted the parts where she and Marcus trashed the brand. Marcus venting about incompetent management. Bianca mocking the very products she'd filmed herself using with that signature smile, calling them overpriced garbage. I wouldn't feed my dog. I posted her laughing about how easy it was to fake enthusiasm for sponsored content. I posted Marcus coaching her on which talking points to hit in her next campaign video while simultaneously calling the CEO a clown. The brand's social media team found it before their legal department did. By noon the next day, Bianca's contract was terminated. The official statement was diplomatic. "We have chosen to part ways with Bianca Morales effective immediately," but the subtext was a controlled explosion. Within hours, Marcus was fired too. The company didn't even give him a meeting. Security escorted him out with a box. Then the dominoes started falling. 3 other sponsors pulled their partnerships by end of week. Her management company dropped her with a form email. The follower count that had taken her 5 years to build began hemorrhaging 10,000 the first day, 30,000 by the third. Comment sections she used to curate like gardens turned into graveyards of mockery and disbelief. Screenshots of her old couple's content circulated with new captions. Couple goals became couple fraud. Headlines picked her name up like "Carrion birds finding a carcass." Asterisk, influencers, perfect marriage exposed as elaborate lie. Asterisk, asterisk, brand ambassador, caught mocking, own sponsors and leaked audio. Asterisk, every outlet, every blog, every gossip account. The algorithm that had built her was now burying her. Bianca called me 47 times in 2 days. I let every call ring through to voicemail. The messages evolved like stages of grief. On fast forward, confusion, bargaining, fury, threats, then a whispered, "Jackie, please, we can fix this at 3 a.m. that I deleted without finishing. What she did next, she did to herself. She showed up at my office on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd already moved out of our apartment and was staying with Derek. She stormed past reception, screaming my name, Mascara Street, voice cracking between rage and hysteria. Security removed her in under 4 minutes. 2 coworkers recorded it on their phones. I didn't even go downstairs. That Friday night, she found Derek's address. Derek called me at 11 p.m. "Brother, you need to see this." He'd heard the commotion from his living room and activated the security cameras I'd helped him install 2 years ago, irony layered on irony. The footage showed Bianca in the driveway, kitchen knife in hand, slashing all 4 of Derek's tires with methodical fury. Then she keyed a long, jagged scratch down the entire driver's side of his car. Then she picked up a landscaping stone and hurled it through his front window. The glass hadn't finished settling before Derek was on the phone with the police. We sued her for property damage. Both of us, Derek for the car and Window Me, as co-plaintiff for harassment. In court, Bianca's attorney tried a Hail Mary defense. I had fabricated everything out of jealousy, planted the messages, staged the restaurant encounter. The judge reviewed the video evidence, all of it, including the security footage of her destroying Derek's property, and ruled against her on every count. Marcus didn't show up. Not to court, not to support her, not even a text from what I heard. The man she'd burned her marriage for evaporated the moment the spotlight turned hot. The judge ordered full restitution. Bianca signed the divorce papers without contesting a single term. There was nothing left to contest. No leverage, no audience, no income, no partner waiting in the wings. Just a woman sitting in a courtroom in clothes she couldn't afford to dry clean anymore, staring at the table while a judge itemized the cost of her choices. I blocked her on everything that same afternoon. Every platform, every number, every possible point of contact. Derek did the same. Sometimes I think about what she said in that parking lot. Asterisk, he loves me too much to leave me. Asterisk, she was half right. I did love her too much. But she confused devotion with weakness. And by the time she realized the difference, the camera she built her life around had already captured everything. The influencer who lived by the lens died by the lens. And the poor thing walked away free.
Story 3.
My mother-in-law spent years convincing my husband I was cheating on him. The proof I changed my outfit for a work meeting once. That was enough to almost destroy the only family I'll ever have. So here's the short version. I married a man with a daughter I love like my own, especially because doctors told me I'd never have biological children. Everything was beautiful until his mother decided I wasn't worthy of the title mom and spent years whispering poison into my husband's ear until he snapped and said something I can't unhear. When the truth finally came out, it wasn't from him. I'm Mila, early 30s. My husband is Greg. His daughter is Lily. She's 7, and she's my whole world. His mother is Barbara, and she's the reason I'm telling you this story. Then there's Denise, my sister-in-law, who blew the whole thing wide open, and her husband Craig, Greg's brother who cut Barbara off years ago. Turns out he knew something I didn't. Let me tell you how it started. Not the big explosion that came later. I mean the slow, invisible shift that made me question my own sanity before I ever questioned my husband. Greg and I met 4 years ago. Lily was 3, and her birth mother had already checked out. Not dramatically, not in a way that makes for a good story. She just dissolved. Chose the bottle over bedtime stories, chose bar tabs over birthday parties. By the time Greg got full custody, Lily hadn't seen her in 8 months. She didn't cry about it. She was too young to cry about it. That's the part that broke me. I fell in love with both of them simultaneously, and I don't know which love hit harder. Greg was gentle then, attentive. He'd watch me read to Lily at night with his look on his face like he couldn't believe someone would choose them. His own father had walked out when he was 11. Craig was 13. Barbara raised them alone, and she never let anyone forget it. When I got my diagnosis, premature ovarian failure, the clinical term for times you will never carry a child, times Greg held me on the bathroom floor for 2 hours. He said, "We already have Lily." And I believed him because it was true. The first year was beautiful. Lily started calling me Mama on her own. Nobody taught her. She just decided. I remember the first time she was reaching for a juice box on the counter and said, "Mama, help." Greg's eyes went glassy. He kissed my forehead. Barbara, who was visiting that weekend, left the room without a word. I should have paid attention to that silence. The fracture happened in October. Lily's gymnastics practice a Thursday. Greg was in a meeting he couldn't leave. I was on a work call that ran 40 minutes over a client in a different time zone who wouldn't stop talking. The gym called Greg first, then me. By the time I got there, Lily was sitting on a bench with her coach, her left arm cradled against her chest, tears dried in streaks on her face. She wasn't crying anymore. That was worse. I drove to the ER doing 15 over the speed limit, singing her favorite song badly to keep her distracted, and I called Greg from the parking lot. He arrived 20 minutes later and I expected him to be scared, grateful, something soft. Instead, he looked at me like I was the fracture. "Where were you?" "I told you." The call ran. The call. Right. He took Lily from my arms, literally lifted her away from me and carried her inside without another word. I stood in the hospital parking lot with my hand still shaped around a child who wasn't there anymore. That night, after Lily was asleep with her new pink cast, Greg said, something I've replayed 1,000 times. "You know what your problem is, Mila? You think showing up late and feeling bad about it is the same as showing up on time." My throat closed. Because my father used to show up late. To everything. To my recitals, my graduations, my life. Greg knew this. He'd held me through the telling of it. "That's not fair," I whispered. "Neither is a kid sitting alone with a broken arm." He went to bed. I sat on the couch until 3 a.m. wondering if he was right. 2 weeks later, I picked Lily up from school 15 minutes late. Traffic, an accident, on Route 9, nothing I could control. But Lily was the last kid in the pickup line, and when she climbed into the car, she didn't say anything. She just buckled her seatbelt with her good hand and stared out the window. That quiet gutted me. So I canceled everything. My entire weekend, the freelance project, the grocery run, the call with my college friend. I built a blanket fort in the living room. We did face masks. I painted her cast with tiny daisies while she picked the colors. We made pancakes shaped like animals, and hers looked more like animals than mine, and she laughed so hard milk came out of her nose. By Sunday night, she was asleep on my chest, and I thought, times, this is what I'm here for. Asterisk. Greg came home from his work trip Monday morning. Lily ran to him screaming, "Daddy," and immediately started telling him about the fort, the pancakes, the daisies. She was radiant. Greg looked at me over her head. No warmth, no gratitude. Something clinical. That evening, after Lily was in bed, he sat across from me at the kitchen table and said it. "Do you think you can be a proper mother figure for once in your life?" My whole body went still. Not frozen time still, asterisk, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me. You're too childish. You're too lenient. You think a blanket fort fixes being careless. I wasn't times careless times, Greg." I was 15 minutes. "It's a pattern, Mila." A times, pattern times. My voice cracked upward. "I have been here every single day. I have loved that little girl like she came from my own. But she didn't." Silence. The kind that has a sound. His jaw tightened like even he knew he'd crossed something. but he didn't take it back. He just sat there, arms folded, wearing an expression I didn't recognize, not anger exactly, but something underneath it, something terrified. And I, exhausted, cornered, vibrating with a hurt I couldn't name, said the worst thing I've ever said in my life. If I'm so unfit, Greg, send her to her mother. Let Rachel handle it. I'm sure she's sober enough by now to remember she has a daughter. The words left my mouth and immediately turned to ash. Greg's face went white. Not red times white asterisk. He stood up, looked at me like I'd put my hands on Lily myself, and walked out of the house. I sat at that table for an hour. Then I packed a bag and drove to my mother's. I didn't know it yet, wouldn't know for another 3 days, but every single accusation Greg had thrown at me had been scripted by someone else. And the dislike ran this deep. It was normal for Barbara to call me names behind my back, say I'm not on their level, tell my husband that I'm using him for his money, even though till his latest promotion, I was making more than him. And he always joked to mention in front of his family that I was a breadwinner. Now, it makes sense why, but I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was that my phone was dark, my husband hadn't called, and the only person who reached out that night was the last person I expected. Denise's name lit up my screen at 1:47 p.m. Asterisk, don't say anything yet, just listen. I need to tell you what Barbara's been doing. Asterisk, Denise talked for 47 minutes. I know because I watched the call timer the way you watch a fuse burn. She started with an apology, not the polite kind, the kind that comes out ragged like she'd been rehearsing it for years and still couldn't get it smooth. I should have told you sooner. Craig wanted to. I kept saying it wasn't our place and I was wrong and I'm sorry. Then she told me everything. Barbara's campaign hadn't started recently. It started before the wedding. The first year Greg and I were dating, Barbara told him I was playing house, that no woman my age falls in love with a man's child that fast unless she's after something else. When Greg pushed back, Barbara shifted tactics. She didn't attack me directly to his face anymore. She asked questions instead. Asterisk. Has Mila mentioned wanting to go back to work full-time? Asterisk. Asterisk. Does she ever seem restless? Asterisk. Asterisk. I just worry, honey. Women who can't have their own children sometimes resent the ones who aren't theirs. Asterisk. Drip, drip, drip. She's been doing this to Greg since you moved in together, Denise said. Every time he stood up for you, her response was the same times. It's not like she'll be the mother of my grandchild one day. Asterisk. My hand pressed flat against my sternum. I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. It kind of makes sense now, I said slowly, why she had a whole hissy fit when I miscarried the first year of my marriage. Denise went quiet. Then she times, what asterisk? I never went into details about my medical condition with her. I just mentioned I couldn't have a child of my own. But that first year, before I understood the full diagnosis, there was a pregnancy. 5 weeks. It didn't hold. My voice was steady, which surprised me. Barbara cried at dinner about it. I thought she was being compassionate. She kept saying, times these things happen for a reason, asterisk. Mila. Denise's voice was thin. She called Craig that night and said, well, at least now Greg won't be trapped. I pulled the phone away from my ear, stared at it, put it back. Tell me the rest. The rest was worse. When I started working from home, freelance design flexible hours so I could be present for Lily, Barbara reframed it. Asterisk. She's home all day doing what exactly times. When I started taking client meetings in person, dressing professionally, driving to studios downtown, Barbara connected dots that didn't exist. She told Greg I was going out a lot for someone who works from home. She mentioned that I'd changed my wardrobe, that I seemed distracted. She never said the word times affair asterisk. She didn't have to. She built the architecture and let Greg's abandonment terror fill in the walls. He never accused me, I said. Not once. Because he couldn't. If he said it out loud and it wasn't true, he'd have to face where the thought came from. I closed my eyes. The kitchen table. Greg's folded arms. That expression I couldn't name, not anger. Asterisk, terror asterisk. He wasn't attacking my parenting. He was testing whether I'd leave. There's one more thing, Denise said, and this is the one that made Craig and me decide we had to tell you. Last year's Mother's Day. Lily asked her grandma if she could get a gift for Mom. She referred to me. She said, times Mom, asterisk. Barbara told her a 6-year-old child with daisy-painted fingernails and a gap-toothed smile that Mila wasn't her mother, that she should make a card for Grandma instead. That calling someone Mom doesn't make them your mom? Lily came home that day and called me Mila for the first time. I remember standing at the stove, wooden spoon frozen mid-stir, feeling something break that I couldn't locate. She went back to Mama within a week on her own because children are more honest than the adults who wound them. I never told Greg about that day. I thought I'd imagined the shift. Craig cut Barbara off 2 years ago, Denise said. That's why she doubled down on Greg. He's the one she can still control. I didn't sleep. I sat on my mother's guest bed with the phone face down on the mattress and did the math that no one teaches you to do. Greg hadn't called. 16 hours and nothing. Either he was sitting in our kitchen marinating in the same poison that had been dripping into him for 4 years, or he was on the phone with Barbara getting the next dose. Both options led to the same place. Here's what I kept circling. I could forgive the cruelty. People say terrible things when they're terrified, and Greg had been fed a story designed to activate every wound his father left behind. I understood that. I did, but he chose times not to ask me. He had a question times. Are you faithful? Are you staying? Do you love my daughter? Or are you performing times? And instead of asking it, he let his mother answer for me. For years, he watched me braid Lily's hair and read her stories and hold her through nightmares, and he still let Barbara's version sit louder than what was right in front of him. That wasn't fear. That was a choice. My phone lit up. Not Greg. Denise again times Craig. Wants to talk to Greg with you present. Say the word and we'll come. Asterisk. I typed and deleted 4 responses. Landed on times. If I confront him and he denies it, I lose everything. If I don't confront him, I lose everything. Slower. Asterisk. Her reply came fast times. Then, at least make it on your terms. Asterisk. I stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across town, Lily was sleeping in her bed with a fading pink cast and daisies I'd painted in a house where the woman who loved her most had just been driven out, and the woman who claimed to love her most was probably already on the phone telling Greg he was better off. The question was never whether I could forgive Greg. The question was whether Greg could become someone worth forgiving. I picked up the phone and called Denise back. Tell Craig to set it up. But I need to see Lily first, before any of it. I need her to know I didn't leave times or asterisk. Silence. Then Denise quietly, she already knows Mila. That kid has always known. Maybe. But I needed to say it anyway. Because that's what mothers do, even the ones nobody thinks count.
Story 4.
I got uninvited from my brother's wedding for being bisexual, and somehow I'm the one who ruined it from my couch in my pajamas cuddling my boyfriend. Here's what happened. My brother Marcus asked me not to come to his own wedding because his fiancée Diane's ultra-religious family might cause a scene if I brought my boyfriend. I accepted it. Didn't fight, didn't cry, just stayed home. Then my parents texted asking where I was. I told them the truth, and that single honest reply detonated a family war that ended in harassment legal charges and a brother I no longer recognize. So let me set the stage. I'm a guy in my mid-20s, bisexual, and honestly way too used to being treated like a problem. My boyfriend is Ethan. My brother is Marcus, married to Diane, whose father Gerald is the kind of man who thinks God handed him a personal vendetta. My mom is Linda. My dad is Robert. And then there's Natalie, Diane's closeted half-sister who nobody saw coming. Marcus and I used to share a bed when thunderstorms knocked the power out. He'd throw his arm over me and say, "Nothing gets past me, little man." He was 4 years older and built like he believed it. I grew up thinking my brother was a wall between me and anything that could hurt me. That wall came down on a Tuesday in March, 8 weeks before the wedding. We were at a diner, his idea neutral ground, which should have been my first clue. He ordered coffee and didn't touch it. Kept turning the mug in circles on the table handle at 12 o'clock, then 3, then 6. So here's the thing, he said. Diane's parents are. You know how they are. Conservative. Yeah. He cleared his throat. And Diane and I talked about it, and we think it might just be easier if you came solo. Without Ethan. I remember the specific feeling, not a stab, not a punch, but a slow leak. Like someone had opened a valve somewhere in my chest and something warm was draining out. Or, Marcus continued, and the mug handle hit 9 o'clock. If that's uncomfortable for you, maybe you could just sit this one out. Sit this one out. Like it was a pickup basketball game. I said, okay. That's the part people can't understand. They read this and think I should have flipped the table, made a speech, drawn a line. But here's the thing about being bisexual for 25 years. In a world that keeps handing you little cuts, you develop this numbness. A callous over the place where outrage should live. Ethan and I had been together 3 years by then, and the things that had happened in those 3 years, the comments from coworkers, the jokes from extended family, the way certain friends just evaporated it all, built this reflex. Someone pushes you out, you step back. You make it easy for them. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight because the fight never changes anything. So I told Marcus it was fine. I told him I understood. His shoulders dropped about 3 inches with relief, and that small physical collapse told me everything about how much he'd been dreading this conversation. Not because he was ashamed of asking, but because he was afraid I'd make it difficult. He hugged me in the parking lot, held on a beat too long. I think some part of him knew he was doing something that couldn't be undone. The wedding was June 14th. Ethan and I spent that Saturday on the couch watching a terrible horror movie, the kind where you can see the boom mic in every other shot. He had his head on my chest. I was running my fingers through his hair. It was genuinely one of the most peaceful afternoons I'd had in months. Then, my phone buzzed. Asterisk, asterisk, Linda, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Honey, where are you? We're at the church, and I don't see you anywhere. Asterisk. My stomach dropped. Not because of the question, but because of what the question meant. Marcus hadn't told them. He'd cut me from the guest list and never bothered to explain my absence to our own parents. I stared at the screen for maybe 30 seconds. Ethan paused the movie. You okay? I typed back the truth. Not out of spite, not to cause damage. Just because I was tired, bone tired of carrying other people's secrets for them. Asterisk, asterisk, me, asterisk, 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 Marcus asked me not to come. Diane's family has a problem with me bringing Ethan. It's fine, Mom. Enjoy the wedding. Asterisk. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing for 45 minutes. I found out later what happened in those 45 minutes. My mother Linda stood up from her pew during the cocktail hour, walked directly to Marcus, and said in full earshot of the head table, You told your brother he wasn't welcome at your wedding because of who he loves. Marcus tried to pull her aside. She wouldn't move. Robert stood up next. My quiet newspaper reading, never raises his voice father stood up and said, Answer, your mother's son. 2 factions formed in under a minute. Linda and Robert on one side. Gerald, Diane's father, on the other. Already red-faced, already loud, already saying something about lifestyle choices and the sanctity of this ceremony. Diane was crying. Marcus was trying to hold the middle arms out like a traffic cop, and the whole thing nearly went physical when Gerald shoved Robert's shoulder. My parents left. Half of Marcus's groomsmen followed. I know all this because Marcus showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m. that night, still in his tuxedo, tie yanked loose veins visible in his neck. You times told times them. He didn't knock. He pounded. They asked where I was. I answered, You could have said you were sick. You could have said times anything, asterisk. You could have told them the truth yourself, Marcus. He stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. Then he left for his honeymoon. That's when things escalated so much it's unbelievable. Within 48 hours, my Instagram was flooded. Ethan's too. Gerald's side of the family found every account we had. The messages were scripture wrapped around slurs, the kind of hate that dresses itself in holiness, asterisk, abomination. Repent. You destroyed a family, asterisk, dozens of them. Some from accounts with profile pictures of smiling grandmothers. I screenshotted everything and sent them to Marcus. His reply times, Stop disturbing my honeymoon with this drama. You started it, asterisk. I sent more screenshots. He left me on red. Then Diane's father Gerald texted Marcus asking for my home address. And Marcus, my brother, the wall between me and anything that could hurt me, gave it to him. I found out about the address from Ethan. He was standing at the living room window with his phone in one hand, the other hand pressed flat against the glass like he was bracing for impact. Someone just posted our street name in the comments of your brother's wedding photo, he said. His voice was steady, but his hand on the glass was white at the knuckles. I called Marcus. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Third time he picked up. Did you give Gerald our address? A pause. The sound of waves. He was on a beach somewhere. He said he wanted to send you a letter. To apologize. Marcus. Look at what his family's been sending us. Look at the screenshots I sent you. Does that sound like a man who wants to apologize? I think you're being paranoid. He posted our street name online. Another pause. Longer. Then I can't deal with this right now. I'm on my honeymoon. He hung up. I stood there holding a dead phone and felt something shift, not break, not crack, but times, shift times the way tectonic plates move. Quiet. Irreversible. The brother who used to throw his arm over me during thunderstorms had just handed my location to a man who called me an abomination. And his defense was that he was on vacation. Ethan and I packed bags that night and stayed with my parents. Linda was already in motion. She'd been in motion since the reception, apparently calling attorneys, documenting everything, building a file with the precision of someone who'd found a purpose that burned. I walked into my parents' kitchen at 7 a.m. and she had printouts spread across the table. Every message, every comment, every threat. Organized by date sender and severity. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She didn't look up. I should have done this years ago. I should have seen what was happening to you and I didn't, and that stops now. Robert was quieter about it. He always was. But that weekend I went into my old bedroom and found a bisexual pride flag, pink, purple, blue thumbtacked above the headboard. No note, no announcement. Just the flag hung slightly crooked because Robert has never been able to hang anything straight in his life. I stood in the doorway, staring at it, and something behind my sternum cracked open in a way that had nothing to do with pain. The legal process took 3 months. Linda filed harassment charges against Gerald and 4 members of Diane's extended family. The evidence was overwhelming, hundreds of messages, the doxing, a voicemail Gerald left on Ethan's phone at 2 a.m. calling us things I won't repeat here. But the moment that broke the case open was Natalie. Natalie was Diane's half-sister. 23. Quiet at family gatherings. The kind of person who always seemed to be standing slightly behind someone else. She reached out to me through a burner Instagram account, no profile picture, no followers created that same day. Asterisk, I have screenshots of my father coordinating the messages. Group chat, I can testify. Asterisk, I told her she didn't have to. I told her the risk. Asterisk, I know the risk. I'm like you. I've been hiding for 6 years. I'm tired of hiding. Asterisk, she testified. In doing so, she outed herself to every member of her family simultaneously. I watched her sit in that room with her hands folded on the table, voice clear, reading messages. Her own father had written messages about people like her, about people like Times, us Times, and her hands never shook. Not once. The case was won. Financial penalties against Gerald and 3 others. Restraining orders. The kind of legal consequences that don't undo damage but draw a line around it. Then came the sit-down. Linda arranged it, insisted on it. Marcus came to my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon in October. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Linda had built her case file, and he looked smaller. Not physically, just reduced. Like someone had turned down his contrast. I'm sorry, he said, for the address, for not listening, for the wedding. The words were correct, every single one. And every single one landed like a coin dropped on carpet technically. They're technically making contact, producing no sound at all. I looked at him, at this stranger wearing my brother's face. I miss who you used to be, I said. His jaw tightened. He stared at the table. Then he stood up, put his hands in his pockets, and walked out the front door. No goodbye, no rebuttal. Just the click of the latch. Linda disinherited him the following week. That was 7 months ago. Marcus and I haven't spoken since. Ethan and I moved to a new apartment address, unknown to Marcus, unknown to Diane, unknown to Gerald. We adopted a cat named Thunderstorm, which Ethan thinks is funny, and I think is exactly right. My parents are different people now. Linda volunteers with a local LGBTQ organization. Robert still can't hang a flag straight, but he tries. They see me now, not the version of me that made things easy for everyone, but the actual me, the one who exists fully and loves who he loves. Natalie disappeared from contact after the case. Her burner account went dark. I don't know where she is. I think about her constantly, this woman who burned down her own shelter to light my way. I hope she's somewhere safe. I hope she's somewhere time seen, asterisk. The cruel math of all this settles on me sometimes, usually late at night, a wedding meant to join 2 families, permanently severed one. And the person blamed for it all was on a couch fingers in his boyfriend's hair watching a movie so bad you could see the boom mic. I never even made it to the church.
Story 5.
I kept my wife's secret life hidden for 7 years, not because she asked me to, but because innocent people would have gotten hurt. She mistook my silence for weakness. That was the last mistake I'll let her make. So here's the short version. I discovered my spouse had been living an entire parallel existence. We're talking years of hidden encounters, secret content, the works. And instead of blowing it all up, I went quiet, engineered my exit. Over 4 months of living together like nothing was wrong, and offered her one deal. Silence for silence. She couldn't take it. Now the only thing standing between her and total exposure is a thread she won't stop pulling. I'm in my early 30s, male. My ex-wife is Vanessa, 32, and the most meticulous liar I've ever shared a bed with. Before her there was Claire, my first ex, who taught me what betrayal felt like at a beginner level. And then there's Mia, who came along later and proved to me that not everyone operates like that. But this story isn't really about any of them. This story is about what happens when you give someone everything they wanted, and the only price was leaving you alone, and they still couldn't do it. Let me back up, because you need to understand what I thought I was walking away from versus what I actually found. Claire was my training ground. Married young, divorced younger. She left for someone she said could provide stability, which was code for a guy who paid for things while she figured out who she wanted to be that week. It stung. It scarred. But it was simple betrayal, the kind you can explain over a beer, and your buddy nods because he's seen it before. Claire taught me that people leave. That was the whole lesson. Vanessa taught me that some people never leave. They just build a second life and let you fund the first one. We met 2 years after Claire. I was cautious. Vanessa was patient. She had this way of making you feel like the only source of gravity in her universe. Everything orbited you. Date nights were sacred. She remembered details about my childhood I'd mentioned once in passing half asleep. She'd text me during work just to say she was thinking about me, not performatively, not with the desperate frequency of someone overcompensating, just enough. Always exactly enough. We married after 18 months, bought a place together, built routines. I thought I'd figured out the formula, find someone who shows up consistently, who doesn't make you guess, who treats your vulnerability like something worth protecting. Vanessa did all of that. For 7 years, she did all of that. The discovery wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on a collar, no suspicious phone buzzing at 2 a.m. It was a browser tab. She'd been using my laptop, hers was updating, and when I opened it later that evening, there it was. A dashboard. Not a dating app. A Times platform asterisk. Subscriber counts, earnings history, message threads going back years. Content I won't describe here, but I'll say this, I was not in any of it, and the timestamps predated our wedding. My hands didn't shake. That's the part that still unsettles me. I sat there at the kitchen island, her laughter floating in from the living room where she was watching some cooking show, and my hands were perfectly still. I clicked through everything with the calm of someone reading a quarterly report. Subscriber messages, revealed names. Names revealed social media profiles. Profiles revealed couples times, married times couples. She'd been meeting for group encounters going back to before our first anniversary. Some of these people had kids. Some of them were in our broader social circle. I closed the laptop. I made us both tea. I brought hers to the couch and sat beside her and watched the rest of that cooking show, and laughed when she laughed, and went to bed at our usual time and lay there in the dark while she fell asleep with her hand on my chest. I did not sleep that night. Or the next 3. Here's what people don't understand about discovery like this. The betrayal isn't the worst part. The worst part is the times recalculation asterisk. Every memory gets audited. Every business trip, every girls' weekend, every Thursday evening yoga class that ran long, all of it feeds back through this new filter, and the math changes on 7 years of your life in about 45 minutes. You don't grieve the person. You grieve the person you thought existed. I made my decision by day 4. I would leave. But I would leave times correctly, asterisk. The house was in both our names, but the mortgage was structured in a way that gave me leverage. I spent 2 weeks with a lawyer before I said a single word to Vanessa. I got my exit architecture in place, sole ownership, transfer, financial separation, the works, and then I told her I knew. Not everything. I told her I'd found the content platform. I left out the names, the couples, the depth. I wanted to see what she'd volunteer. She volunteered tears. Magnificent, shuddering, full-body tears. She grabbed my forearms and her nails, left half moons in my skin, and she said, "It was just money. It didn't mean anything I was going to tell you." When I was times working up to it, asterisk. For 7 years. Silence. Then more crying. Then the pivot I'd been waiting for. I'll stop. I already stopped. I deleted everything. She hadn't. I checked that morning. What followed was 4 months of cohabitation that I can only describe as living inside a performance. Vanessa cycled through every mode, sobbing penitent, angry accuser, seductive reconciler, cold roommate, sobbing penitent again. She'd leave handwritten letters on my pillow. She'd cook my favorite meals and set the table for 2 with candles. She'd corner me in the hallway at midnight, eyes swollen, voice cracking, "You can't just times shut me out, times I'm still your wife." I kept my voice level every single time. I ate the meals, I read the letters, I slept in the guest room, and I worked the plan. The papers were nearly ready. The house transfer was almost finalized. I'd severed myself financially from every joint account, every shared obligation, every thread that tethered me to her. And then, on a Tuesday evening in month 3, Vanessa sat across from me at the kitchen island, the same island where I'd first found everything, and said something that made every muscle in my back go rigid. I told my mother, "You've been having mental health episodes. Just so you know. In case you were thinking about talking to anyone about us." In case you were thinking about talking to anyone about us, she said it while peeling an orange, casual, like she was mentioning a change in the weather. The rind came off in one long spiral, and she separated a segment and ate it, and looked at me with eyes that had absolutely nothing behind them. I understood then fully cellularly that I had never known this woman. Noted, I said. That was the last real conversation we had under the same roof. The final 6 weeks were surgical. I finished the paperwork. I secured sole ownership. I packed while she was at work, not because I was hiding, but because I was done performing proximity. On the day I left, I placed the settlement agreement on the kitchen island with a single post-it note, ***, silence for silence. This is the only deal. ***. The terms were simple. I would never disclose what I'd found. Not the platform, not the names, not the couples with children who'd been part of her parallel life. In return, she would never contact me again. No calls, no texts, no messages through friends, no narrative campaigns. Complete and permanent severance. Vanessa signed it the same day. Her lawyer called mine and said she was relieved and grateful for his discretion. That relief lasted 11 days. The first breach was soft. A mutual friend, Derek, called to check in with a tone so rehearsed I could hear the stage directions. He mentioned how times worried times Vanessa was about my state of mind. He used the phrase dark place twice. He asked if I'd considered talking to someone professional the way you'd suggest it to a man standing on a ledge. Derek: did she tell you to call me? Long pause. She just cares about you, man. I hung up. I did not call back. The second breach was louder. My sister forwarded me a screenshot. Vanessa had messaged her on Instagram, expressing deep concern about my mental health, referencing episodes that never happened, asking my sister to keep an eye on him. My sister, to her credit, saw through it instantly. But the fact that Vanessa had reached into my times, family times, that she'd touched, that something shifted in my chest. A load-bearing wall developed its first crack. The third, fourth, and fifth breaches blurred together. A coworker mentioned that someone had reached out to HR to express concern about my well-being. A college friend I hadn't spoken to in years texted asking if I was okay. My gym buddy said Vanessa had shown up at his wife's book club, a book club she'd never attended, and spent 20 minutes painting a portrait of a man unraveling. She was building a preemptive defense. If I ever talked, I'd be the unstable ex-husband lashing out. She wasn't grieving. She was times constructing asterisk. Each time I said nothing publicly. Each time I contacted her lawyer with a formal notice of breach. Each time her lawyer assured mine it wouldn't happen again. It always happened again. Month 5, post-separation, I stopped tracking the breaches. Not because they stopped, but because counting them had become its own prison. I was living in a studio apartment across town, rebuilding from the studs, and every time I felt the floor solidify beneath me, another call would come. Another concerned voice, another whisper network she'd fed. The friends went first. I cut every mutual connection. Not with announcements, not with explanations, just silence. Phones unanswered. Invitations declined. I became a ghost in a social circle I'd spent 7 years building because every node in that network was a potential channel back to her. Then family. Her mother, who I genuinely loved, called me crying one night saying Vanessa was devastated and I was being cruel. I listened to the whole thing. I said, "I'm sorry, you're in pain. I hope she finds peace." I never picked up that number again. The loneliness of that period was architectural. It wasn't sadness. It was the experience of standing in a building after every wall has been removed. Wind moving through spaces that used to be rooms. Here's where I am now. I work as we speak out of country 4 months. But I'm coming back after, and we are moving into a house we've bought together and is being built as I type we, being me and Mia, who I met 14 months ago through the most unremarkable introduction imaginable. A friend of a friend. Coffee that turned into dinner that turned into a Tuesday morning where she looked at me across her kitchen and said, "You don't have to perform being okay. You can just be whatever you are right now." I can honestly say I have zero concern about what she's doing back home because I trust her fully, which I didn't think was possible to do again 3 years ago. I'm going to go home in 4 months, see her and my cat, and have an amazing Christmas, hopefully proposing in the new year. Things have moved quickly for us, and I honestly would have never given much thought to my ex. I don't think I realized how much I didn't think about her anymore until I was curating my Facebook about 3 months ago and saw a slew of old pictures of me and her together. I had removed everything about her previously, or so I thought. Turns out she unblocked herself from my account, I still don't know how, and had been viewing my posts, my photos with Mia, my new life. Watching, still orbiting. That's when I found out the Whisper campaign never stopped. It just went underground. New people. New stories. A version of me that exists in her telling volatile, broken, dangerous walking around in the minds of people I've never met. So here's the calculus. I offered silence for silence. I held my end for 3 years. I protected names, marriages, families with children who don't know what their parents did on alternating Saturdays. I did that not for Vanessa. I did it for times them asterisk, but the deal is broken. She broke it so many times, the document is confetti. And the song, every name, every timestamp, every couple who trusted the discretion of a stranger more than they trusted their own vows, that song is composed. It has been for years. I've just never pressed play. Vanessa had everything. Her secret life, her freedom, her narrative. All she had to do was walk away. She couldn't. Now the only question is whether I'm merciful enough to keep a promise that only one of us ever honored. I'm running out of reasons to say yes.
Story 6.
I guess I'm the bad guy now. My wife would tell you I'm a monster, a liar who threw away in one 8-year marriage for someone else. She's not wrong about the liar part, but she's got the timeline all mixed up. Our marriage didn't die this week. It died 18 years ago. I'm just the one who finally had to bury it. We were 20 years old when it happened. 20. I was so stupid in love I couldn't see straight. She was everything to me. My first real love, the person I was building my entire future around. We had our first kid and another was on the way. Then the bomb dropped. It wasn't just a one-night mistake. She had been sleeping with her ex-boyfriend for 1.5 years. 1.5 years. Say that out loud. 18 months. For 1.5 years, she would kiss me goodnight, tell me she loved me, and then go meet him. For 1.5 years, she looked me in the eye and lied. And when that ended, there was another guy, an online thing. The trust wasn't just broken. It was ground into dust and scattered. It never came back. She tells everyone I forgave her. That's a nice, clean word for a very messy thing. I didn't forgive her. Forgiveness is for people who still have a partnership. I made a business decision. We had kids. I wasn't going to tear their world apart because of her. So I made her sign an agreement. It laid out exactly what would happen if we divorced. She would get less, I would get more. It wasn't about the money. I never wanted the money. It was a leash. It was a physical document that said, "You broke this. You don't get to pretend it's whole again." From that day on, our marriage was an arrangement. She just didn't want to admit it. She thinks we had an awesome marriage for the next decade. What we had was my Oscar-winning performance. I played the part of the perfect husband. I got her into rehab and helped her stay clean. I encouraged her hobbies, bought her art supplies, told her how talented she was. I planned the family vacations. I remembered the anniversaries. I did all the things a good husband is supposed to do. It was easier to play the part than to face the cold, empty space where my love used to be. I was building a beautiful house for our kids, but the foundation was rotten to the core. They deserved a stable home, and I was going to give it to them, even if it cost me my own soul. Then she got sick. About 7 years ago, uterine cancer. The day the doctor told us, she looked at me and saw tears in my eyes. She thought they were for her. She thought, he really loves me. He's scared of losing me. I was crying, but not for her. I was crying for me. I saw my prison sentence just get extended for life. The weight of my duty of this role I was playing was about to double. The escape I dreamed of was now impossible. How can you leave a sick wife? You can't. You become a saint or a monster, and I chose to play the saint. For 6 months I took care of her. I changed her dressings, I cooked her meals, I drove her to every appointment. I held her when she was weak and told her everything would be okay. Every single day was a new kind of hell. I'd bring her a bowl of soup with a smile on my face while screaming on the inside. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was my patient, my responsibility. Every kind word I said, every gentle touch felt like another nail hammering my own coffin shut. I met Sarah at work a few years after that. It wasn't planned. I wasn't looking for an affair, I was just looking for a person. We started talking during coffee breaks. Simple stuff. Work movies, complaining about the boss. And she laughed at my stupid jokes. She actually listened when I spoke. For the first time in more than 10 years, a woman looked at times me, times not at the character I was playing. I wasn't the husband or the dad. I was just a man. And I felt seen. The secret Facebook account wasn't about being sneaky. It was the only place on earth I could take the mask off. It was the only place I could be myself. We would message for hours. It wasn't just sexting and dirty pictures, though there was some of that. It was talking. It was real conversation with someone who didn't come with 18 years of baggage and betrayal. One night I told her everything. About my wife's affairs, about the agreement, about the cancer and feeling trapped. It wasn't gossip. It was like lancing a boil that had been poisoning me for my entire adult life. I told her that being with my wife felt like a chore, something I had to do to keep the peace in the house. With Sarah, it felt like breathing again after holding my breath for 15 years. We've been doing this for 3 years now. We just had our little anniversary. A bottle of cheap wine in a motel room, but it felt more real than any of the expensive anniversary dinners I'd ever had with my wife. We talked about the future. Of course we did. The idea of a life with her, a real one, after my kids are grown and out of the house, that's the only thing that gets me through the day. It's my light at the end of the tunnel. It's the life I thought I was going to have before my wife burned it all down. Last night I got home late. I was tired, but Sarah and I were messaging back and forth. Just little things, goodnight texts. I put my phone on the nightstand, plugged it in, and rolled over. My wife was already asleep, a soft, even rhythm to her breathing. I kissed her on the forehead, a habit nothing more, and closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt a little bit of peace. I fell asleep, dreaming of a future that finally felt possible, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. The next morning, the peace was gone. The air in the room was thick and heavy, like right before a thunderstorm. I opened my eyes, and she was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with her back to me. Her shoulders were shaking just slightly. I knew. I didn't know how I knew, but the lie detector that's been wired into my gut for 18 years was screaming. I did what I always do. I played my part. I sat up, reached over, and put my hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" She flinched, pulling away from my touch like I had burned her. She didn't turn around. "Just a bad night's sleep," she mumbled. It was a lie, and we both knew it. After so many years of pretending what was one more morning, I got up, got ready for work, and kissed her on the forehead before I left. It was like kissing a marble statue. Cold, hard, and empty. The whole drive to work, my stomach was in knots. I knew the show was coming to an end. I just didn't know when the curtain would fall. It fell at 3:15 p.m. My phone buzzed on my desk. It wasn't a text. It was a string of screenshots. My conversations with Sarah. Dozens of them. The I love yous, the plans for our future, the things I'd said about my marriage. Underneath them, a single message from my wife: get home, now. The drive home was the calmest I've felt in my entire life. It was terrifying. There was no panic, no frantic rush to come up with an excuse. The time for excuses was over. The performance was done. All I could think was, times it's finally over. Asterisk. I walked in the door and she was standing in the living room, my phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. Her face was a mess of tear tracks and raw anger. The beautiful house I'd worked so hard to maintain for our kids suddenly felt like a stage, and the final scene was about to play out. "Who is she?" she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't lie. What was the point? Her name is Sarah. We used to work together. That's when the dam broke. The whispering turned to screaming. She threw my phone at the wall, where it shattered and fell to the floor in pieces. She called me a monster, a liar, a sociopath. She screamed about the last 18 years, about our perfect life, about how I could do this to her after everything she'd been through, after she'd fought cancer. I just stood there and took it. I let her scream until she was hoarse. When she finally ran out of breath sobbing, she looked at me and said the one thing that I knew was coming. "I thought you were my soulmate. I thought we had the perfect marriage." And that's when I finally spoke. Asterisk, you times thought we had the perfect marriage, I said, my voice low and flat. I had a full-time job playing the part of your husband. Her face changed from anger to confusion. What are you talking about? We were happy. No, I said. Asterisk, you times were happy. I was doing my duty. Our marriage ended 18 years ago, the day I found out you'd been screwing your ex for a year and a half. Everything since then has been for the kids. A business arrangement. The color drained from her face. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger for the first time. I mentioned the agreement, the papers I made her sign all those years ago. That wasn't forgiveness, I told her. That was a contract. Those were my terms for staying and raising my children in a stable home. You broke the marriage. I've just been managing the fallout. She thinks her world shattered today. She doesn't get it. My world shattered when I was 20. She's just finally seeing the rubble that I've been living in for almost 2 decades. Her pain is real, I see that. But it's the echo of the pain she put me through. She's mourning the loss of a man who never really existed. The happy, loving husband she remembers was a ghost. A character I put on every morning and took off every night when I was alone. The last few weeks have been hell on earth. We're living in the same house, but it's a cold war of slammed doors and whispered angry conversations when the kids are out. She cries constantly. She begs. She asks me what she can do to fix it. How do you explain to someone that you can't fix something that has been dead for 18 years? She's terrified of being alone, but I've been alone in this marriage since the beginning. I told Sarah everything, of course. I called her the night it all blew up. She was scared, but she was steady. She asked me what I was going to do. And for the first time, I had an honest answer. I'm getting a divorce. My wife has brought up counseling. She wants to try to rebuild. Rebuild what? A lie. I told her no. I told her to get a lawyer. She screamed that I was being cold, that I was just trying to take everything from her. She doesn't understand that I don't want anything except my freedom. The money, the house, it's all just stuff. I'd live in a cardboard box if it meant I could wake up in the morning and not have to put on a mask. I know how this looks. I'm the bad guy. I'm the cheater who left his wife who survived cancer. That will be the story everyone hears, and I guess I have to live with that. But the truth is so much messier. The guilt is there. It's a heavy weight, especially when I see the confusion in my kids' faces. I've hurt them, and that's a pain I'll have to carry forever. I blew up their world to save my own. But underneath the guilt, underneath the anger and the sadness, there's something else. It's a feeling I haven't had since I was a kid. For the first time since I found out about her first affair, I can breathe. The performance is over. The curtain is fallen. And I'm finally terrifyingly free.
Story 7.
I saw what my husband wrote about me. I guess it's my turn. He painted a picture of a crazy, insecure wife who blew up our marriage over a silly experiment. The truth is, our marriage was already dead. He was just the last one to notice. For the first 6 years, we were a unit. We were that comfortable couple who orders pizza on a Tuesday and gains the same 10 pounds over the holidays. We had our first child, then our second, and we were in the trenches together. Then our son was born, and something in my husband just broke. He found the gym. And I don't mean he started going to the gym. I mean he found times it like a religion. At first I was so proud. I loved that he was getting healthy and had a new hobby. I tried to make it our thing. I bought new workout clothes and went with him a few times, but I was clumsy and tired. I was still recovering from a difficult birth, and I just couldn't keep up. So I stopped. And that's when it became times his times world, and I became a problem he needed to fix. Every single conversation became about my diet or my sedentary lifestyle. He'd watch me eat a piece of toast and say something like, "You know that's just empty carbs." He wasn't trying to be mean. He genuinely thought he was helping. That was the worst part. He'd wrap his insults in concern. He'd say things like, "I'll love you no matter what size you are," but the tone was clear. I am a good man for putting up with you. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his before and after picture that never got to the after. He was the star of this new life he was building, getting leaner and stronger every day, and I was just the frumpy mom he came home to. The breaking point was that dumb Instagram comment. He's right, I never thought he was cheating. But he posted a photo of himself lifting a crazy amount of weight, and the comments were all from his new gym friends. "Looking strong, bro, killing it," and then one from a woman. "Beast mode, you're an inspiration." When I saw it, my heart just sank. It was a stupid, tiny thing, but it was proof. Proof that he had this whole other life with this whole other group of people who saw him as this amazing, powerful man. And where was I? I was at home, covered in baby spit up, feeling like I was shrinking while he was growing. I tried to explain it to him that night. I told him I felt left out, that I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. He didn't get it. He just got defensive, pulling up her profile to show me she was married. He completely missed the point. The point wasn't her. The point was that he was building a kingdom and I wasn't even allowed in the gates. That's when he came up with his brilliant idea. He was sitting on the edge of the bed with a smug, patient look on his face like a therapist talking to a difficult child. He said we should both make Tinder profiles. Just as an experiment. A confidence boost. For me. He was so sure of himself. So sure that this grand gesture would prove I was still desirable and finally shut me up about my insecurities. It was the most condescending thing anyone has ever said to me. But I said yes. I felt like if I said no, I'd be proving his point. That I was weak and scared. We downloaded the app, paid for Tinder Gold, and set our location to London so no one we knew would see us. He was laughing, making jokes about it. For him, this was a fun little game. For me, it felt like I was about to be graded on my own worth. We put a movie on, and for 2 hours I just stared at the screen, a knot of ice in my stomach. Then the time was up. He checked his phone first. "Huh," he said, "only one." Then I unlocked mine. My screen lit up like a Christmas tree. It was vibrating non-stop. Notifications were flooding in. 330 likes. More than 330. It just kept climbing. I opened the app and it was a sea of faces, men from all over the world. Doctors, lawyers, artists, guys who looked like they belonged on the cover of a magazine, and they all saw my picture and swiped right. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a mom. I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like a woman. A woman that people times wanted asterisk. We sat there on the bed and scrolled through my phone together. I watched the smug little smile fade from his face. The giggly fun mood was gone. He was just quiet, staring at the screen. I saw him swallow hard as a message popped up from a banker in Dubai telling me my smile was incredible. Then he showed me his one match. She was not at all the type of woman he usually finds attractive. And a sound came out of me that I hadn't made in years. I laughed. A real, deep, cruel laugh. I couldn't help it. The dam of all my resentment just broke. I looked him right in the eye, put on my sweetest, most patronizing voice, and said, "Aw, at least I still want you, honey." That was it. That was the moment I saw it. The power in our marriage didn't just shift, it flipped upside down. He had opened this door to prove a point, and now he was terrified of what he'd let in. We both deleted our accounts that night and went to bed without saying another word. But it was too late. The next day, at work, I couldn't focus. All I could think about was that feeling. That buzz of being seen. Was it real or just a fluke I had to know? I pulled out my work laptop, opened a private browser, and typed in the one word that I knew could ruin my life. Or maybe, just maybe, save it, Tinder. It wasn't a fluke. The likes and messages came pouring in again, even faster this time. I made a new profile, one that didn't mention being married or having kids. I used a picture from a few years ago before the baby weight really settled in. I just wanted to see. I told myself it was for science. My own little experiment. It quickly became more than that. It became my secret world. During my lunch break, while the kids were asleep, whenever I had a spare 5 minutes, I was on my laptop living this other life. I was talking to a lawyer in New York who loved my sense of humor. A musician in Berlin who wanted to know all about my day. It was intoxicating. For the first time in years, men were interested in my mind before they even knew about my body. They asked questions. They listened. They weren't trying to fix me. My two best friends, Sarah and Chloe, were my cheerleaders. They'd both gotten out of bad marriages and were thriving. When I finally confessed to them what I was doing, they didn't judge me. They poured me a huge glass of wine and said, "It's about damn time." They told me I deserved to feel wanted. They said my husband had spent years making me feel small, and if this was what it took to feel big again, then I shouldn't feel an ounce of guilt. Their support was like a permission slip. The conversation started to change. The compliments about my smile turned into compliments about my body. The questions about my day turned into questions about what I was wearing. And I leaned into it. I sent pictures, nothing with my face, but pictures that made me feel powerful and sexy. Receiving their replies, seeing how desired I was, felt like a drug. It was a fantasy, I knew that. But my real life had become so bleak that a fantasy was the only thing keeping me afloat. The intimacy with my husband was completely gone. Every time he touched me, it felt like an obligation. Like he was doing his husbandly duty, checking a box. The pity in his eyes was gone, replaced by a nervous confusion, which was almost worse. He was walking on eggshells around me, and honestly, I liked it. He found out on a Tuesday night. I was on the couch with my laptop, smiling at a message from the guy in New York. My husband came into the room and asked what I was looking at. I quickly closed the laptop, but not before he saw the distinctive orange flame of the Tinder logo. His face just crumpled. "Are you serious?" he whispered. "After everything, you're still on that thing." This was it. The moment I'd been both dreading and craving. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I just looked at him. "You opened the door, not me," I said, my voice steady. "You ran an experiment to see if I was still desirable. Well, congratulations. The results are in. I am." He started pacing, running his hands through his hair. "This isn't about that. This is about you lying to me, going behind my back, talking to other men." "And what about you?" I shot back, standing up. "What about you spending years making me feel like garbage, like a project you had to work on? You can't just break someone's self-esteem and then get angry when they find a way to build it back up." By cheating, he yelled. "This is how you fix things. By sexting strangers." "I haven't done anything, not really," I said, and it was true. It was all just words and pictures on a screen. But maybe we should. Both of us. He stopped pacing and stared at me, confused. "What are you talking about?" And that's when I said it. "I think we should have an open marriage." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and cold. I tried to explain it. I told him he was the one who was obsessed with looks, with the gym, with all those fit women who admired him. I was giving him a pass, a way for us to both get what we wanted without the lies. I was trying to make it sound like a logical, modern solution. But he saw right through it. He just shook his head, a look of complete and utter defeat on his face. "So, this is it," he said, his voice cracking. "This is how you end it. Not by leaving, but by trying to turn our marriage into some kind of free for all. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the woman you created, I told him. And I meant it. We've been living in a state of limbo ever since. He sleeps in the guest room. We're polite for the kids, like two coworkers who can't stand each other but have to finish a project. The power is all mine now, but the victory feels hollow. The confident, smug man I married is gone, replaced by a sad, quiet ghost who barely looks at me. Some days I miss the man he used to be, the one who would get winded walking up the stairs with me. But then I remember the feeling of his judgment, the weight of his disappointment, and I don't feel guilty anymore. He wanted to prove I was still desirable. He thought it would be a quick fix, a little ego boost that would make me quiet and compliant again. He thought he could control the outcome. But he didn't realize that you can't show someone a world of warmth and light and then expect them to willingly walk back into the cold. He started the fire, and now he's angry that our house is burning down. Maybe it needed to. Maybe sometimes you have to burn everything to the ground to see the sky again.
Story 8.
I'm sure my husband has told his side of the story, and I'm sure it makes me sound like a monster. The cheating wife. The one who destroyed everything. And I did. I won't deny that. But stories have more than one side, and mine didn't start with a secret text message. It started with silence. Moving back to my hometown was supposed to be a good thing. We'd be closer to family, have more support. But for me, it was the beginning of the end. My husband is a doctor, and he's a brilliant one. He's a good man, a good provider. But he was never really home, even when he was sitting right next to me. He'd walk through the door, and the stress of his job would walk in with him. It was a physical presence in our house, this cloud of anxiety about work and money that he never, ever talked about. He'd just disappear into his phone or his laptop, and I would just not exist. My entire life had shrunk. I was the one running the house, raising our kids, managing the schedules, everything. My world was school runs and grocery shopping, and a home that felt more like a quiet office where I was the unpaid staff. I loved my children more than anything, but I was disappearing. I was just mom. I was just the doctor's wife. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a set of responsibilities. The loneliness was a physical ache. I started going to therapy by myself. I threw myself into working out. I was trying anything to feel like I was still in my own body. One night, I finally got up the courage to say something. I found him in the living room scrolling on his phone, and my heart was pounding. I asked him if he would go to couples counseling with me. I told him I felt like we were drifting apart. He didn't even really look at me. He just kind of shrugged and said, "I think we're okay. Let's just see how it goes." Okay. He thought we were okay. He had no idea our marriage was already underwater. That was the moment I truly gave up. He couldn't see me. He couldn't see how much pain I was in. After that, I stopped trying to get him to. Then I met our new friends, the other couple. The husband and I were both the primary caregivers during the day while our spouses worked. We started talking. It was that simple. We'd hang out while the kids played. We talked about how exhausting toddlers are, about bad TV shows, about what we wanted to be when we grew up. He actually listened. He would look at me when I spoke, and he'd see the dark circles under my eyes and say, "You look tired," instead of just looking straight through me. He made me laugh. For the first time in years, I felt like a real person. The text started innocently enough. a meme about parenting, a complaint about being nap-trapped. But it quickly turned into more. We started texting all day, every day. It was my secret world, my escape. He was the first person I talked to in the morning and the last one I talked to at night. The I love yous and the pet names just sort of happened. It wasn't planned. It was the language of two people who were starving for connection and had finally found it. It felt safe because it was just words on a screen. Of course, it didn't stay that way. His wife found the messages. The panic I felt was ice cold. When my husband confronted me, I lied. I downplayed it, said it was just a friendship that got a little weird. How could I explain that these messages were the only thing holding me together? How do you explain a hunger to someone who's never missed a meal? I even offered to show him the texts, a bluff because I knew he wouldn't look. He trusted me, but it didn't feel like trust. It felt like he didn't care enough to even be suspicious. His wife demanded we stop all communication. My husband agreed. It felt like they were trying to take away my air supply. The secrecy that came next wasn't about being sneaky. It felt like a matter of survival. We downloaded a secret messaging app. We started talking on the phone late at night, whispering for hours when the whole house was dark and silent. It was crazy, it was reckless, but it was ours. It was the only thing that was just for me. I sent him pictures of myself, pictures in my underwear, pictures where I tried to look sexy. It sounds so sordid, I know, but it wasn't really about him. It was about me. It was proof that I was still a woman, someone desirable, and not just a tired mom in yoga pants. Each picture was me trying to see myself the way he saw me. The first time we kissed, it felt like something that was always going to happen. The physical affair was just the next logical step. Our hearts and minds had been in this for months. Our bodies were just catching up. Those afternoons at his house, when everyone was gone, were the only time I felt completely whole. The lies I had to tell to get there were horrible. The fake errands, the alibi I created with a girlfriend by taking a picture with her before I left to meet him. I hated that part. I hated the person I had to become to keep this one part of my life where I felt alive. But I was so desperate I was willing to pay the price. I had built this entire second life, this fragile bubble where I was seen and loved. And for a while I managed to keep my two worlds from touching. I thought I could handle it. I thought I had it under control. Then one afternoon I came home from the grocery store. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I put the bags down on the counter and called out for my husband. No answer. I walked through the house and I found him in our little home office. He was sitting in my chair at my desk looking at my laptop. The screen was on. He wasn't typing. He was just staring. He didn't turn around when I walked in, but I knew he'd heard me. The air in the room was thick and heavy and I couldn't breathe. My blood went cold. He knew. After a long, terrible silence, he slowly turned his head and looked at me. There wasn't any anger in his eyes. Not yet. It was just a hollow, shattered look. And in that moment I knew my world, both of them, had just been burned to the ground. "What did you find?" I asked, but my voice was a whisper. The words felt stupid as soon as they left my mouth. It was obvious what he'd found. My secret life was laid bare on that laptop screen. He didn't answer right away. He just swiveled the chair around to face me fully. The hollow look was still there, but now something else was creeping in around the edges. A cold, hard anger that was so much scarier than yelling would have been. "The pictures," he finally said, his voice flat. "I was looking for a tax document and saw a folder with his name on it. I shouldn't have looked, but I did." He gestured to the screen. Why would you do this?" My mind was racing, trying to find the words to explain years of loneliness in a single sentence. "I was lonely," I choked out. "You weren't here. You were never here." It sounded so weak, so pathetic. The classic cheater's excuse. A flicker of pain crossed his face. "I was working," he said, his voice rising just a little. "I was working to pay for this house, for our life. While I was killing myself at the hospital, you were doing this." He didn't need to say more. I knew what he was thinking. The betrayal wasn't just about the sex, it was about everything. And then he delivered the next blow. "His wife called me an hour ago," he said, and my stomach dropped through the floor. "She found your secret messages, the ones from the new app. She sent me the phone logs too, the calls at 4 a.m., the hours and hours on the phone. Do you know how that feels? To know you were whispering to another man while I was asleep in the bed next to you?" I had nothing to say. There was no defense. My secret world wasn't just mine anymore. It was being passed around, examined, judged. So I called him my husband, continued, his voice breaking. I called him and I asked him. And he told me everything. He looked at me, his eyes pleading now. He told me about the afternoons at his house. He told me it happened more than once. Tell me he's lying. Please. But I couldn't. I just stood there frozen as the truth settled into the room and suffocated us both. The affair wasn't a secret anymore. It was just a collection of ugly facts that had destroyed two families. The bubble hadn't just popped. It had exploded, and the shrapnel hit everyone. The days that followed were a living nightmare. We were ghosts in our own home, moving around each other, speaking only when we had to about the kids. The silence now was 1,000 times worse than the silence that had started all of this. It was heavy and filled with pain. We tried one session of marriage counseling. It was a disaster. The therapist wanted us to be honest, but honesty felt like a weapon. He wanted to know every detail, every text, every touch. He wanted to understand what I did, but he never asked why. He never tried to understand how we got there. He just saw what I had done, not the years of nothing that came before it. The breaking point came when the therapist suggested radical transparency. He wanted all my passwords. My phone, my email, my social media. My husband latched onto the idea immediately. He saw it as the only way to ever trust me again. I said no. I know how that sounds. It sounds like I was still hiding something. But I wasn't. It was all out in the open. For me, it was about something else. My entire life had been for him, for the kids, for the house. My phone, my private messages with my friends, my thoughts, that was the last little corner of the world that was just mine. Handing over the passwords felt like letting him colonize the last inch of my soul. It felt like agreeing to be a prisoner, to have my every thought monitored. I had already lost myself once in our marriage. I refused to do it again. My refusal was the final nail in the coffin. For him, it was proof I couldn't be trusted. For me, it was the first time I chose myself. The decision to separate was mutual, but it felt like a verdict he handed down to me. The day he helped me pack my things was surreal. I'd be folding a sweater and he'd be taping up a box, the silence between us filled with 5 years of memories. I saw our wedding photo on the mantelpiece, the one where we're both laughing young and so sure about forever. I didn't recognize either of us. I cried then. Not for the marriage we had at the end, but for the one we were supposed to have, the one that got lost somewhere between his job and my loneliness. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt him or our kids or another family. I just wanted to feel alive. Now I have my own place. It's small and it's quiet. Sometimes the quiet is good. It's peaceful, other times it's just lonely. But it's a different kind of loneliness. This is the loneliness of starting over, not the loneliness of being invisible next to the person who is supposed to see you better than anyone else. I have the kids half the time. Seeing their little faces, knowing I blew up their world for my own selfish needs, is a pain I'll carry with me forever. That's the part that I can never justify. They didn't deserve any of this. I'm in therapy, just me, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not a wife or a mom or an object of someone's desire. I'm trying to learn how to feel whole, all on my own. It's hard. Some days I feel like I'm drowning in regret. But for the first time in a very long time, I feel like I can breathe. This new life is scary and uncertain, but it's mine. Every broken, messy piece of it is mine.
Story 9.
You've probably read my husband's story. The story where I'm the monster. The cheating wife who built a family on a mountain of lies. And he's not wrong about the lies. But he's wrong about why. He thinks it was about betrayal, about other men. It was never about them. It was always only about him. We met in high school. He wasn't the captain of the football team or the class president. He was the quiet, sweet boy who sat behind me in history class. He used to talk about his future like it was a movie he'd already seen. He didn't want to be a rock star or an astronaut. He wanted a big, noisy house with a porch swing and a dog. Most of all, he wanted kids. Lots of them. He joked that he needed at least 5 to have his own basketball team. He has bright red hair, and he was so specific about it. "They'll all have my red hair," he'd say, smiling. A whole team of little redheads. It was the purest, most important thing in his life, and because I loved him, it became the most important thing in mine. We got married young, just like we planned. We bought a small house, the starter home that we would fill with the sounds of tiny feet. I couldn't wait. But the months turned into a year, then 2. The silence in our house started to feel heavy, suffocating. We started seeing doctors. It was a humiliating process of tests and questions of being poked and prodded and feeling like a failure. Through it all, we held on to the idea that it would work out. Then we got the news. We were sitting in a small, sterile office, and the doctor was talking in a calm, professional voice. I don't remember the exact words he used, something about zero motility. All I remember is what it meant. The problem was him. He couldn't have children. I watched my husband, my strong, confident man, just collapse. Not on the outside. He just sat there nodding. But his eyes went blank. That dream of his, the one he'd been carrying since he was a boy, the noisy house, the basketball team, the little redheads, it all just died right there in that doctor's office. He heard that he was a failure. That the one thing in the world he was put on this earth to be a father was impossible. He never spoke of it again. Not once. When I tried to bring up adoption or other options, he would just shut down. He'd leave the room or change the subject. Instead, he threw himself into work. He started leaving before I woke up and coming home after I was in bed. He was building the perfect financial life for a family he believed he would never have. He was building a beautiful cage for his own grief, and I was trapped in it with him. I felt him slipping away, and I knew I was losing him to this black hole of sadness. I couldn't let that happen. So I made a decision. It was a cold, hard, terrible choice made out of desperation and a love so fierce it was probably crazy. I decided that if the universe wouldn't give him his family, then I would. Whatever it took. Our eldest daughter, Sarah, wasn't the result of a passionate affair. It was a calculated, horrible mission. I found someone, a man I barely knew, and I did what I had to do. The shame was so heavy I could barely breathe. But when I came home pregnant and told my husband it was a miracle, the light came back on in his eyes. He cried. He held me and he just cried with relief. He never once questioned it. He didn't want to. He just wanted it to be true. He wanted to be a father. And he was a wonderful father. Seeing him hold Sarah for the first time, I knew I'd made the right choice, even if it was the wrong thing to do. My lie gave him back his life. Over the next several years, I did it again. And again. And again. Each time was a separate, agonizing decision. It wasn't a secret life of cheating. There was no romance, no emotion. They were transactions of shame. The father of my next two was a friend who knew our situation and swore he would take the secret to his grave. He understood my desperation. The others, they were just means to an end. Each time I'd come home and bury the ugliness deep inside me, and then I'd get to see the pure joy on my husband's face as our family grew. I built his dream for him piece by painful piece on the ruins of my own soul. He provided for us, loved the kids, and was the perfect father. I was the perfect mother, the keeper of the home. We never fought. Our life was a peaceful, happy performance, and we were both playing our parts. For 33 years it worked. Our house was noisy and full of love. We had 5 beautiful children. 4 of them were adults starting their own lives. We had the life he always dreamed of. And then my daughter Sarah bought an ancestry kit. It was just a fun birthday gift, a silly hobby. She came to me a few weeks later looking at her phone with a confused frown. "Mom, this is weird," she said. "The site is connecting me to all these family members like second cousins, but I don't recognize any of the names on this whole side of the family tree. It says they're from Dad's side, but it's all wrong." My blood turned to ice. A lifetime of secrets, 33 years of carefully guarded walls, and it was all about to be blown apart by a mail-in DNA test. I tried to laugh it off. "Oh, those things are never accurate," I told her, my voice shaking just a little. "It's probably just a glitch in their system." But my husband overheard us. I saw the look on his face. It was the same look from the doctor's office all those years ago. A flicker of that old, deep-seated fear. The insecurity I had spent my entire life trying to protect him from. Sarah's confusion had planted a seed of doubt, and he couldn't let it go. "I'm going to do one," he said quietly a few days later. "Not an ancestry test, a paternity test." "Don't be ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "She's your daughter. She has your smile." "I need to know," he said, and he wouldn't look at me. He needed to prove it to himself. He needed to kill the doubt that I had woken up. The 2 weeks we waited for the results were the longest of my life. I felt like I was holding my breath for 14 straight days. Then last Tuesday he came home from work early. He walked into the kitchen and set a single white envelope on the counter between us. He didn't have to say a word. I knew what it was. His hands were trembling as he reached for it, and his face was pale. I looked at the man I had given my entire life to, the man whose happiness was the only thing that ever mattered to me, and I knew our world was about to end. He slid a finger under the flap of the envelope and tore it open. The silence in the kitchen was so total I could hear the crinkle of the paper. His eyes scanned the page, and then he just sagged. He didn't shout, he didn't scream. He just leaned against the counter, his whole body seeming to fold in on itself. He put his head in his hands, and a sound came out of him that I will never forget. It was a sob, but it was hollow, like it had been ripped out of his soul. He was crying for his daughter, for the betrayal. But I knew what he was really crying for. He was crying for that boy in the sterile doctor's office 33 years ago. The truth he'd run from his whole life had finally hunted him down and cornered him in his own kitchen. And my heart shattered, because the one thing I had sacrificed everything to prevent, this exact pain, was happening right in front of me, and I was the one who had caused it. That first test was just the beginning. It was like he became a man obsessed. He needed to know about our other children. It didn't matter what I said. The trust was gone. The foundation of our life was gone. One by one, he had our other 3 adult children tested. Each time we waited for the envelope, it was like waiting for a sentence. Negative. 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 The worst part wasn't just that they weren't his. The worst part was that the tests revealed that my 2 sons had the same biological father, but my 2 daughters each had different ones. 3 different men. When he discovered that something in him just broke completely, he stopped looking at me with sadness and started looking at me with disgust. He couldn't see the years between each child. He couldn't see the quiet desperation, the agonizing choices. He just saw a promiscuous monster. He built a story in his head of a wife who lived a secret, sordid life. And in a way, I guess I did. But it was never for me. It was never about them. It was always, always for him. How could I ever make him understand that? The final blow came about a week later. I walked into the living room and they were all there. My husband and my 4 children. All of them. They were sitting on the couches waiting for me. It was an intervention, an ambush. He had the lab reports spread out on the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. He wanted me to confess. He wanted an explanation. He wanted me to beg and plead for forgiveness for betraying him. But it was my children's faces that destroyed me. They weren't looking at me with anger. It was worse. They were looking at me with a kind of sad confusion, but their eyes were all fixed on their father. They were looking at him with this deep, heartbreaking pity. He was the victim. I was the villain. The family I had built to protect him had now formed a wall around him to protect him from times me*. My son Mark, my oldest boy, was the one who spoke. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. He just stared at the floor and said, "Why, Mom? Why would you do this to him? To us?" How could I answer that? What could I possibly say? I did it because I didn't think your father could handle the truth. I did it because I loved him so much, I destroyed myself to give him what he wanted. It sounded insane. It sounded like an excuse. All the air went out of my lungs. I looked at the lab reports, at their faces, at the ruins of the perfect life I had so carefully constructed, and the only thing that came out of my mouth was a whisper. The tests are wrong. They have to be. It wasn't a real denial. It wasn't a lie, not really. It was a prayer. A stupid, desperate plea to the universe to just turn back time to put everything back in the box and let us be happy again. For a single insane second, I thought if I said it with enough conviction, it might become true. No one believed me. Of course they didn't. The look on my husband's face turned from pain to cold, hard rage. That was the moment he decided he hated me. The weeks after that were silent. A heavy, thick silence that filled every room of our house. They stayed for him, not for me. My children would talk to me if they had to, simple questions about dinner or laundry. But they looked through me. I was a ghost in the home I had built. My husband slept in the guest room. Sometimes I would hear him walking around late at night, and I knew he was just as trapped as I was. In that silence, I finally understood. There was no explanation I could give that would ever fix this. The truth was a weapon, and I had two choices. I could tell him he was the victim of my infidelity and let him hate me for being a monster. Or I could tell him the real truth. I did all of this because I looked at you, the man I loved, and I decided you were too weak to handle the truth of your own body. I pitied you so much that I built your entire life on a lie. The first story would let him be the righteous, wounded husband. He could grieve, he could rage, and eventually he could heal, surrounded by the love of his children. The second story, the real one, would destroy him completely. It would not only confirm his deepest fear about his manhood, but add the unbearable weight of knowing that his whole life, his fatherhood, his happiness, was an act of pity from his wife. It was a wound I knew he could never survive. I had tried to be the architect of his happiness, and instead I became the architect of everyone's pain. I had trapped myself. He wanted an answer, a reason for the betrayal. But the reason was him. It was always him. And I can't make him carry that. I won't. So I'm writing this down, though I don't know who will read it. Maybe no one. But I can't leave this world without the real story being told somewhere. Let him think I was unfaithful. Let him think I was selfish. Let him and my children remember me as the monster who broke their family. It is a much kinder truth than the one we both know would kill him. This is the only thing I have left to control. It is my final silent act of love. I am taking the secret with me.
Story Teen.
I'm the wife. The one who cheated. You've probably heard my husband's version, and I'm sure I sound like a monster. Maybe I am. But things are never as simple as one person being good and the other being bad. Our story started falling apart long before I ever sent that first text message. It started with the house. It was supposed to be our dream, the place where we'd raise our family and grow old. Instead, buying it nearly broke us. The stress was unbelievable, a constant grinding weight on both of us. We were fighting about money, about paint colors, about everything. The joy was just gone, replaced by this shared anxiety. I thought another baby would fix it. I remembered how happy we were after our daughter was born, how we felt like a team. I thought a second child would bring that feeling back, that purpose. When I brought it up, my husband looked at me like I'd asked him to climb a mountain. He said he had reservations. He talked about money and the stress of the new house. It was the first time I felt like my dream for our family was something I had to sell him on, like a timeshare. But I pushed, and eventually he agreed. The moment I saw that positive pregnancy test, I felt a rush of hope. But when I showed it to him, his smile didn't reach his eyes. It was there for a second, then it vanished, and he confessed he had this nagging dread he couldn't shake. That dread became a wall. He didn't build it brick by brick. He just built it overnight. He decided the only way to deal with his fear was to get a new, better-paying career. And just like that, he was gone. He enrolled in a bunch of online courses and locked himself in his study. He says we still had dinner together, and technically we did. But he wasn't there. He was a ghost at the table, staring through me, his mind on coding or project management or whatever it was he was studying. I tried to talk to him about my day, about our toddler, about the new baby kicking, and he'd just nod, give a one-word answer, and you could tell he was just waiting for me to stop talking so he could go back to his computer. I was dealing with a moody 2-year-old, a high-risk pregnancy that left me exhausted and sick, and a new house that still felt like a construction zone. I was drowning, and my husband was in the other room with noise-canceling headphones on. I have never ever felt so alone in my entire life. I tried to get his attention. I tried to feel like a person again. I'd take long baths, put on a nice dress, do my makeup. I was trying to feel like the woman he fell in love with, not just a tired pregnant mom. He either didn't notice at all or he'd get this suspicious look on his face. "Who are you getting dressed up for?" he'd ask, not like a compliment, but like an accusation. I wasn't just losing my husband. I was disappearing. Then someone at work saw me. He's older, married, and a manager in another department. It started so innocently. He just listened. He'd ask how my weekend was and actually stick around to hear the answer. He noticed when I got a haircut. He told me my new maternity dress looked nice on me. It was like getting a drink of water after walking through a desert for months. I didn't realize how thirsty I was for a little bit of attention, for someone to just see me as a human being. It started with friendly chats, then we started texting. Stupid things at first, jokes and complaints about work. But his texts made my heart beat faster. They were a bright spot in my gray, lonely days. It felt good to have a secret, something that was just for me. For the first time in so long, I felt interesting and alive. I know what you're thinking. And yes, it went further. A lot further. Was it wrong? Of course it was. It was a terrible, reckless thing to do. It was an escape. It was a fantasy where I was the main character, where I was wanted and exciting. My husband was upstairs studying for a future I felt no part of, and I was downstairs on my phone building a temporary world where I wasn't just a household appliance. The other man would give me little assignments, things like, "Wear the green dress tomorrow," or "Tell me about your first kiss." It sounds weird, I know, but it was a game. And it was intoxicating because it was all about me. For a few hours I wasn't a neglected wife or a vessel for a baby my husband seemed to resent. The first time we met at a hotel, I was so nervous I almost threw up. But in that room, I wasn't a mom. I wasn't pregnant. I was just a woman being desired. It was a fantasy, but it was the only thing that was keeping me from completely breaking down. The fantasy came crashing down when my husband found the messages on my social media. The look on his face, I will never forget it. He was broken and I had broken him. He kept asking why. Why? But how could I explain it? How could I say, because you checked out? Because you made me feel invisible. Because your dread for our new baby made me feel like I was a burden. It would have just sounded like excuses. It would have sounded like I was blaming him. So I gave him the simple answers. I told him it was the pregnancy hormones, that I was stupid, that it was a mistake and it meant nothing. It was easier than trying to explain the slow, quiet death of our marriage. I promised to end it. And I meant it. I really, truly wanted to fix my family. I cut off all contact with my coworker. I focused on my husband. For a few weeks we tried. He came out of his study. We went on dates. We took our daughter to the park. It was like we were acting out a play of what a happy family looked like. But it felt so fragile, like one wrong word would shatter everything. But the affair wasn't just physical. It was an emotional habit, a crutch I had relied on for months. I felt like I couldn't just ghost him and move on. I needed to see him one last time, to say a real goodbye, to close that chapter completely, so I could truly focus on my marriage. I needed closure. I know how that sounds, but it felt true to me. It felt necessary. I knew my husband wouldn't understand. His trust in me was a thread, and asking to go see the man I cheated on him with would snap it instantly. So I lied. I told him I had a one-night business trip for work, a last-minute training seminar an hour away. It was a stupid, panicked decision. As I packed an overnight bag, my hands were shaking. I felt sick with guilt, but I told myself it was for the greater good. One last lie to end all the lies. After this, I could finally be the wife and mother my family deserved. I just had to get through this one night. I drove to the hotel, met him, and ended it for good. The whole drive home, I rehearsed what I would say to my husband, how our new life would start tomorrow. I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over. I had done it. I pulled into our driveway, took a deep breath, and walked inside. The house was quiet. He was sitting on the couch in the living room, with all the lights off except for the glow of his phone screen. He didn't look up when I came in. The air was cold and heavy, and in that moment I just knew something was terribly wrong. "How was the trip?" he asked, without looking up from his phone. His voice was completely flat. It was the kind of quiet that's louder than screaming. All the relief I had felt on the drive home evaporated. "It was fine," I said, my voice sounding shaky even to my own ears. Long, tiring. I started taking things out of my overnight bag, trying to act normal, trying to pretend the air in the room wasn't thick enough to choke on. "Good seminar?" he asked. The question just hung there. He still hadn't looked at me. "Yeah, you know, corporate stuff." I was rambling. My heart was pounding in my chest. He knew. I didn't know how, but he knew. He finally looked up from his phone, and his eyes were hollow. There was no anger in them yet, just a chilling emptiness. "That's funny," he said, his voice dangerously low. Because your work doesn't have a seminar scheduled for tonight. I called them. My blood ran cold. Of course he had. He had been stewing here all night, checking, verifying, building his case against me. My lie was so thin, so stupid. And that's also funny, he continued, standing up and walking towards me, because location sharing is still on. He turned his phone around so I could see the screen. It was a map. A map with a neat, tidy blue line showing my car's journey from our house to a hotel downtown and then back home. Not to the conference center, an hour away where I had claimed to be. The floor felt like it dropped out from under me. I had nothing. No more lies, no more excuses. I was ending it, I whispered the words, feeling pathetic and small. I swear. I went there to tell him it was over for good. I needed to do it in person. I needed closure so I could come home to you and be done with it all. He laughed. It was a horrible, bitter sound that had no humor in it. Closure. You lied to my face. Packed an overnight bag and went to a hotel with the man you cheated on me with, and you call it closure. He was shouting. Now the emptiness in his eyes replaced by a firestorm of rage and pain. You think I'm that stupid? You think I'm that much of a fool? It's the truth, I cried, tears streaming down my face. I know how it looks, but I am telling you the truth. It's over. I ended it tonight. He stared at me, his chest heaving. He looked like he was searching for a single reason to believe me, but couldn't find one. Then a new, cruel kind of calm settled over him. Okay, he said. Okay. If it's really over, you won't mind proving it. He pointed to my phone, which I had set on the kitchen counter. Pick it up. Text him right now. Tell him your husband knows everything and that you can never speak to him again. Let's see what he says. I froze. It felt like a trap. A test I was designed to fail. This wasn't about truth. It was about power. He wanted to watch me, to control the narrative, to humiliate me. He wanted to see me perform my repentance for him. My affair was born out of feeling invisible and powerless. And here he was in the most critical moment trying to make me his puppet. No, I said, my voice barely audible. What, he snarled. Why not? If it's over, what's the problem? Because this isn't about us fixing things, I said, a new kind of strength, a desperate, cornered animal strength rising in me. This is about you punishing me. This is a game and I won't play. So you're protecting him, he spat, the accusation dripping with venom. After everything, you're still protecting him. He lunged for my phone, but I was faster. I snatched it off the counter and held it to my chest. It was a reflex. It wasn't about the other man. It wasn't even about the messages. It was about saying, you don't get to control this. You don't get to control me. It was the last piece of myself I had left, this one final act of defiance, and I clung to it. His face crumbled. Seeing me clutch the phone like a lifeline was his answer. To him it was a confession. It was proof that I was still in it, that I had chosen the affair over him, over our family. The hope I had seen flickering in his eyes just moments before died completely. He looked at me as if I was a complete stranger, a monster who had taken his wife's place. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. It was the sound of our marriage taking its last breath. He just shook his head slowly, a single tear rolling down his cheek. He didn't say another word to me. He walked past me, went upstairs, and I heard the drawers of our dresser opening and closing. A few minutes later, he came down with a duffel bag. He walked to the front door without a glance in my direction, opened it, and left. The click of the lock echoed in the silent house. I stood there in the kitchen for I don't know how long, phone still clutched in my hand until my legs gave out, and I slid down to the floor. It was over. My stupid, desperate attempt to get the closure I thought I needed had destroyed the one thing I was trying to save. I had lied to end the lie. And in doing so, I had burned the whole world down. He thinks he caught me cheating a second time. That's the story he'll tell everyone, and that's what they'll all believe. They'll see my refusal to give him my phone as the ultimate proof of my guilt. But the truth is, he had already decided I was guilty. The phone wasn't a tool for finding the truth. It was a weapon to confirm his worst fears. He didn't want reconciliation. He wanted a confession. He wanted to win. He never once asked me why I was so lonely I would look for comfort in another man's arms. He never asked what it felt like to manage a toddler, a house, and a high-risk pregnancy while he hid in his study building a future I wasn't sure I was part of. He only ever asked, "Why would you do this to me? It was never about us. It was about him." Snatching that phone was the last selfish thing I did. But it was also the first thing I did for myself in a long time. I refused to let my messy, complicated, painful story be reduced to a text message in his cruel little test. He thinks he caught a cheater. All he really did was prove he never saw me at all. And now he never will again.
Story 11.
I know what my husband told you. I know how I look. I'm the cheater, the liar, the one who broke our family. And I am. I did those things. But a story is never just one thing, and a person is never just the worst thing they've ever done. Before I was the villain in his story, I was just disappearing. Our life was perfect on paper. My husband is a good man. He's a planner, a provider. He made sure the mortgage was paid, the cars were serviced, and the retirement accounts were healthy. He managed our life like it was the most important project he'd ever been assigned, and he never missed a deadline. We had 2 amazing kids, a nice house, and a good neighborhood. It was the exact life I thought I always wanted. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person in it. I became a line item on his project plan. I was mom. I was wife. I was the chauffeur, the cook, the one who knew where the extra light bulbs were and when the kids needed their checkups. My husband would come home and ask how was the day, but he wouldn't wait for the answer. He'd be looking at the mail or scrolling through his work emails on his phone. He loved me, I believe that. But he didn't times me anymore. I was just a part of the house, like the furnace or the plumbing. As long as I was functioning correctly, I didn't require any special attention. The loneliness was an ache so deep I started to forget what it felt like not to have it. Then I met him. The AP. It wasn't dramatic. We were parents on the same committee at school. It started with just talking. He'd ask me about a book I was reading, and he would actually listen to what I thought about it. He remembered a stupid story I told about my childhood dog. He saw me. Not the mom, not the wife, just me. It felt like taking a deep breath after being underwater for years. The affair was a terrible, stupid mistake. I knew it was wrong every single second. but it was also the only thing that felt like it belonged to me. It was a secret, messy, selfish corner of the world where I wasn't just a role I was playing for everyone else. It was a desperate attempt to feel like a real person again. When my husband found out, the world ended. The look on his face, it shattered me. The beautiful, stable life he had so carefully built was in flames, and I was the one holding the matches. The guilt was a physical thing. It was heavy, suffocating. I saw the pain I had caused him, the father of my children, the man I had built a life with. I hated myself for it. I would have done anything to take it back. We agreed to try. We started therapy. He laid out the rules for reconciliation like a new project plan. The main rule, the non-negotiable one, was no contact with the AP. 0. Block his number, delete him from everything, act like he doesn't exist. I promised. I swore I would. I meant it with every fiber of my being. But it was impossible. He wanted me to just stop, to cut out this part of my life and pretend it never happened. But the AP was the only person on the planet who knew the whole ugly truth. He was the only one who saw me when I was invisible. How was I supposed to talk about that with my husband, the man whose heart I had just ripped out? I couldn't tell him. I was terrified that I felt lost, that some days I didn't even know who I was anymore. He would just see it as an excuse. He was the victim. I had no right to have complicated feelings. My friends only knew the perfect wife version of me. I couldn't tell them. I was completely alone in the wreckage I had created. So I broke my promise. I kept talking to him. Not like before. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate. It was like calling the one other person who was at the scene of the car crash to ask if they remembered how it happened. I would text him when the guilt was eating me alive, when my husband looked at me with that empty hurt expression. He was the only one I could say it to. I was drowning, and he was the only one who knew what the water felt like. I deleted the texts and the call logs every single time. It sounds bad, I know. It looks like I was just hiding the affair all over again. But I wasn't hiding it from my husband. I was hiding my weakness. I was so desperate for him to see that I was trying, that I was getting stronger, that the good wife was coming back. I couldn't let him see the pathetic, scared woman who still needed a crutch to get through the day. Every deleted message was me trying to erase my own failure, hoping that if he didn't see it, it wasn't real. The weeks went on. Therapy was hard. Some sessions were just us sitting in silence. Other times it was him listing my failures. But there were moments, tiny little cracks of light, where I thought we might actually make it. We'd share a small smile over one of the kids' jokes. He'd touch my hand for a second longer than necessary. I held onto those moments like a lifeline. I thought we were building something new. I thought the honesty was starting to work, even if mine was incomplete. He was getting calmer, more distant, but I told myself it was part of the process. He was processing. He was healing. The rages had stopped, replaced by a quiet, calculating stillness I mistook for acceptance. I thought he was finally starting to see me again, the real me who was trying to find her way back. This week he told me he thought we were ready for a real breakthrough in our next therapy session. He seemed almost hopeful. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of actual hope myself. Maybe we had finally hit the bottom and were on our way back up. We drove to the therapist's office together. I remember looking over at him in the car, about to say something about how glad I was that we were still trying. But the look on his face stopped me cold. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was the calm, satisfied look of a man who had already won the game and was just waiting for his opponent to realize it. I walked into the therapist's office feeling lighter than I had in months. I sat on the familiar gray couch and smiled at him a real smile. He didn't smile back. He just sat there, his hands resting on a manila folder in his lap. He looked at our therapist doctor, Alan, and nodded like he was giving her a signal to begin. So she started. You mentioned you wanted to talk about a breakthrough. My husband opened the folder. I did, he said, his voice flat and empty. I've had a breakthrough in my understanding of the situation. He pulled out a stack of papers and slid them across the coffee table toward me. Divorce papers. My name was already typed on every line. My breath caught in my throat. I just stared at them. This wasn't a breakthrough. This was an ambush. I don't understand, I stammered, looking from the papers to his face. There was nothing there, no anger, no sadness, just a cold, hard finality. I think you do, he said. He then pulled his phone out of his pocket. I did what you couldn't. I sought out the truth. He pressed play. A recording started, and I heard his voice, then another man's. The APs. My husband had confronted him, recorded the whole thing. He'd edited it down to just the worst parts, the confirmations of calls and texts that I had promised were over. It was a confession. My confession coming out of another man's mouth. He played it for me, for our therapist, like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. Every word was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't a therapy session. It was a public execution, and I was the one on the chopping block. He hadn't come here to heal with me. He had come here to win. He wanted a witness to my final humiliation. He wanted to watch me break in front of the one person who was supposed to be helping us fix it. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was deafening. He put the phone away. I've called my lawyer, he said calmly. You'll be served officially at the house. I just wanted you to have this copy first. Out of respect. Respect. The word was so cruel it almost made me laugh. He hadn't just gone behind my back. He had declared war. And he had made sure he had all his armies lined up before he fired the first shot. The drive home was silent. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, the divorce papers feeling like they weighed 1,000 pounds on my lap. When we pulled into our driveway, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I answered, expecting to cry and tell her everything. How could you, was the first thing she said. Her voice was shaking with anger and disappointment. After everything he's done for you, how could you keep lying to him? He had already called them. While I was sitting in that office reeling, he had been on the phone methodically cutting me off from my own family. He didn't just want to leave me. He wanted to make sure I had nowhere else to go. A few minutes later, a text came in from a number I didn't recognize. It was the AP's wife. Asterisk, I know everything. Stay away from my family. Asterisk, he had torched my life, and now he was salting the earth. I got out of the car and just stood in the driveway, unable to move. He walked past me toward the house, our house, which was now his fortress. I watched him go, and the full weight of what he had done crashed down on me. I wasn't just losing my husband. I was losing everything: my family, my home, my reputation. I was completely, utterly alone. A sob tore its way out of my chest, a raw animal sound of pure agony. My legs gave out, and I just collapsed onto the cold concrete of the driveway. I lay there and wept not, caring if the neighbors saw. There was nothing left to hide. I don't know how long I was out there. Eventually he came back out. He stood over me for a moment, then he bent down and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me to my feet. He held me tight while I sobbed into his shirt, just like he had 100 times before. But this time was different. It wasn't comfort. It was a final goodbye. He held me until my sobs quieted, then he let me go, turned around and walked back inside, closing the door behind him. He left me standing in the ruins he had created. We lived like ghosts for the next few weeks. He slept in the guest room. We had a schedule for the kitchen and a custody arrangement for the kids, all within the same house. The silence was thick with anger and grief. We barely looked at each other. He was the cold, righteous victim. I was the disgraced liar. Then one night everything broke. The kids were at my parents who would barely speak to me. We were just two people in a big empty house full of memories. I found him in the living room just staring at a photo of us from our wedding day. The look on his face wasn't anger anymore. It was just loss. The same loss I felt. Without a word, I sat next to him. We didn't talk. We just sat there side by side in our shared misery. And then we were touching, a hand on an arm, a head on a shoulder. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about loneliness. It was a desperate human need to not be completely alone in the dark. We ended up in our bedroom in our bed for the first time in months. It wasn't about love or even passion. It was about grief. It was two people who knew every inch of each other's bodies, seeking a familiar comfort in the middle of a war. It was messy and sad and deeply confusing. The next morning, nothing was fixed. The divorce papers were still on the dresser. But something had changed. The anger had been replaced by a huge, gaping sadness. The war was over, and we were both just survivors standing in the rubble. That was when the real work started. Not the fake, performative work I had been doing before. This was the brutal, ugly honesty. I had to finally tell him everything. Not just about the affair, but about the loneliness that came before it. About how I felt like I had vanished. I had to show him the weak, scared, flawed person I had been hiding, not just from him, but from myself. I had to admit that I kept talking to the AP not to keep the affair going, but because I was terrified of facing the mess I'd made alone. He had to start being honest too. He had to admit that he had stopped seeing me. That he had been managing a household, not nurturing a wife. He had to face the part he played in the before. We called off the lawyers. We didn't tear up the divorce papers, but we put them away in a drawer. We went back to therapy, but this time there were no secrets. It was grueling. Some days it felt impossible. But for the first time we were fighting the same enemy, the brokenness between us instead of each other. He finally saw the woman who got lost, not just the monster who betrayed him. And I finally saw the husband who was hurt, not just the enemy who tried to destroy me. I don't know if we'll make it. I truly don't. The story isn't over. But this is the real beginning. Not the one where we pretended to fix things, but the one where we admitted everything was completely broken and we decided to see if we could build something new together from the wreckage.
Story 12.
I've read my ex-husband's version of our story. I'm sure I sound like a monster. The cheating wife who destroyed everything while he was trying to get his life together. And I did cheat. I won't deny that. But a story is like a car crash. What you see depends entirely on where you were standing. And for a long time, I was standing so far on the outside of my own life, I wasn't sure I was even there anymore. For 9 years, my life was defined by one thing, my eating disorder. It owned me. It was the third person in our marriage, the loudest one in every room. My husband was my rock, my caretaker, my warden. He counted calories, he watched me, he drove me to appointments. Our entire world, our conversations, our future plans, everything orbited my sickness. When I finally went to a residential treatment center, I thought it was the beginning of us finally getting our lives back. I came home fragile and raw, battling a deep depression that had settled in the empty space the disorder left behind. I was ready to start over, but the home I came back to wasn't ours anymore. It was his. While I was gone, he had developed his own problem. A painkiller addiction that had started quietly while he was stressed and taking care of me. Suddenly, the script flipped. He went to rehab. He had therapy. He had meetings. He had a recovery journey. And just like that, I was erased. The entire focus of our lives, which had always been on me, shifted to him. He called it focusing on himself, which sounds healthy, I know. But from where I was standing, it felt like I'd been fired from the job of being his wife. I'd sit alone in our quiet house for hours while he went out to his groups, his therapy, his new sober life with his new sober friends. He was celebrated for his progress. People praised his strength. He was a hero for getting clean. And me, I was just the ghost of the sick wife he'd been stuck with for nearly a decade. I had been the center of his universe out of necessity, and now that he had a new center, his own recovery, I was just floating in empty space. I had never felt so invisible, so utterly alone. Then someone saw me. My manager at the part-time job I'd taken to feel human again. He didn't know me as a patient. He didn't see me as fragile. He just saw a woman. He'd say small things like that I looked pretty without makeup or that I had a nice laugh. It sounds so insignificant, but when you've spent years feeling like a medical chart, having someone notice the color of your eyes feels like a miracle. One evening after work, he kissed me. It wasn't about love or even lust. It was like a defibrillator to the chest, a jolt. It was the first thing that had made me feel truly alive, truly present in my own body in years. I went straight home and told my husband. I wasn't trying to hide it. I was trying to show him. I was trying to scream without making a sound. Times, look at me. I am disappearing. I need you to see me. Asterisk. But he didn't. He saw it as a problem with my boss, a workplace issue to be managed. He didn't see it as a symptom of a much deeper sickness growing between us. A few weeks later, Jay came to visit. He's my husband's best friend, but he was my friend too. He'd known us since the beginning. He knew the Joe from before the illness, the one who laughed and joked and wasn't just a bundle of anxieties. My husband spent the entire car ride from the airport complaining to Jay about me. About how difficult I was, how my depression was a burden now that he was trying to stay on his path. I just sat in the back seat listening to him frame me as the new problem he had to solve. That night we went to a party at our friend LL's house. I drank too much, too fast, trying to drown out the feeling of being a stranger next to my own husband. He was off in his own world laughing with his friends while I felt like I was behind a glass wall. I saw Jay heading to the bathroom and I followed him. I just needed to talk to someone who might actually hear me. I cornered him in there, my words spilling out in a desperate, drunken mess. I wasn't trying to seduce him. I was falling apart, and he was the only person who looked at me with kindness instead of suspicion. Of course, that's the moment my husband chose to open the door. The look on his face wasn't concerned. It was pure accusation. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just saw a betrayal waiting to happen. The night was ruined. The next morning, he left. He was hungover and angry, and instead of staying and talking, he just said he was going to his parents' house. He just walked out. He left me there alone with my shame and his best friend. But Jay didn't leave. He stayed. He made coffee. He put on a movie. He just sat with me in the quiet and he listened. He let me cry. He let me talk. He didn't offer solutions or tell me to get over it. He just saw me. And at some point, sitting on the couch, he put his hand on my leg. It wasn't aggressive or sexual. It was just a warm, steady pressure. It was the first gentle touch I'd felt from a man in what felt like a lifetime that wasn't clinical or obligatory. My husband came back late in the afternoon to get some of his things. The air was so thick with tension you could barely breathe. He didn't say a word to me, just grabbed a bag and left again. The silence he left behind was deafening. After he was gone, Jay and I were just standing in the living room, and the space between us felt charged. All the loneliness, the resentment, the desperate need to feel something, it all just collapsed inward. He moved toward me, and I moved toward him. We ended up on the floor, a clumsy, fumbling mess of hands and mouths. It wasn't planned. It was a stupid, impulsive collision of two very broken people. His lips were on mine, his hands were in my hair, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't a ghost. I was a body. I was real. We were so lost in the desperate tangle of it all that neither of us heard the front door open again. We didn't hear the footsteps in the hall. The first thing I knew was the shadow that fell over us. I looked up and there he was, standing in the bedroom doorway, his face a perfect blank mask of shock. The silence was the worst part. For a few seconds that felt like an eternity, nobody moved. The world just stopped. Then his face, which had been blank, finally broke. But it wasn't sadness or hurt. It was a cold, quiet rage that was terrifying. He didn't look at me. He looked at Jay. It was like I wasn't even in the room. I was just the object they were fighting over. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just said in a voice I'd never heard before, "Get out of my house." Jay scrambled to his feet, pulling his shirt straight. He tried to say something, my husband's name, but my husband just pointed to the door. Jay looked at me, a helpless, panicked expression on his face, and then he was gone. The front door slammed shut, and the sound echoed through the house. Then he finally turned to me. I was still on the floor, feeling small and pathetic. I braced myself for the yelling, for the accusations, for him to finally unleash all the anger he must have been feeling. Instead, he just walked past me into the closet. He pulled out a duffel bag and started throwing clothes into it. Methodically, like he was packing for a business trip. He went into the office and came out with a cash box where we kept our emergency money. He emptied it into his pocket without a word. "Say something," I finally whispered, my voice cracking. He stopped and looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. "There's nothing to say, Joe," he said. His voice was flat, empty. "You made your choice." And then he left. I sat there on the floor for hours, waiting for him to come back, waiting for the real fight to start. But it didn't. The real fight happened later that night. Jay had called, worried, and I'd gone to meet him on the street a few blocks away. I just needed to not be alone. We were just talking when my husband's car screeched around the corner. He launched himself out of the driver's seat before it even stopped. He didn't come for me. He went straight for Jay. He tackled him into a snowbank, his hands around Jay's throat, screaming things about betrayal and friendship. He wasn't fighting for our marriage. He was fighting for his pride. I screamed and pulled at him, and it was only when a neighbor's light came on that he finally let go. He looked at both of us with pure disgust, got back in his car, and sped away. It was never about saving us. It was about winning. That night I ended up back at LL's house where the party had been. Jay was there with a bruised neck and a haunted look in his eyes. We were both just shells. We drank more. And later, on the same couch where people had been laughing just 24 hours earlier, we had sex. There's no other way to describe it. It wasn't making love. It wasn't even passion. It was ugly and fast and desperate. It was two people trying to feel something, anything other than the absolute emptiness that was consuming them. It was a pathetic, self-destructive punctuation mark on the worst day of my life. It was the adrenaline rush I'd been chasing, and the crash afterward left me feeling more dead than alive. A week later, I told him everything. I called him and laid it all out, the manager, the kiss with Jay, the sex on the couch. I thought if I exposed the ugliest, most horrible parts of myself, it might shock him. Maybe the raw truth would be so powerful it would force us to actually deal with the mess we were in. But his reaction was calm. He was already in therapy, already building his narrative. I wasn't his struggling wife anymore. I was his addict behavior, a codependent he needed to create boundaries with. My confession wasn't a cry for help. It was just more evidence for his case against me. He had his story, and I was the villain. It made his recovery simpler. We spent months in a miserable limbo. He'd come by the house to get things, we'd have cold therapy speak conversations. I was drowning, and my attempts to feel something, to feel wanted, got more reckless. There was another man. It wasn't an affair. It was a handful of nights with someone from work who paid attention to me. It meant nothing. But then I missed my period. The pregnancy was my last insane, desperate gamble. A baby. I thought a baby could fix it. A baby would be a reason to start over, something that was ours, a way to force us back into being a family. I told him I was pregnant, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the old hymn. Hope, fear, something. But we both knew the timeline was complicated. He agreed to go with me to the first doctor's appointment. The silence in that waiting room was the loudest sound I've ever heard. The ultrasound confirmed it. I was pregnant. But the dates didn't line up. It wasn't his. The truth hung there in the sterile air of the exam room. He didn't say a word. He just stood up and walked out, leaving me there with the jelly still on my stomach. A few weeks later, I lost the baby. The miscarriage was brutal physically and emotionally. It was the universe giving me the final definitive no. The death of my last stupid, broken hope. That was the final catalyst. That was when the divorce papers were filed. My husband says that's when our marriage really went downhill. He points to the affair, the pregnancy, as the moments I destroyed everything. But he's wrong. Our marriage didn't die on the bedroom floor with his best friend or in a doctor's office. It died quietly over years. It died in the sterile white of hospital rooms. It died in the long, silent nights when he was learning to save himself, and I was forgetting how to exist. The affair wasn't the cause of the fire. It was just the explosion that happened after the whole house had already been rotting away for years. I was just the one who finally lit the match.
Story 13.
I'm sure you've all read his side of the story. I'm the monster. The cheating girlfriend who took his money and ran. I get it. It sounds terrible, and some of it is. But he tells the story like it all started a few months ago, like our life was perfect before I got a new job. That's a lie. Our story started 11 years ago, and you need to hear that part to understand any of this. He likes to say he stepped up. He was 18 a kid, and I was 20 with a toddler, and he became a family man. It sounds noble, doesn't it? The truth is, he was a boy playing house, and I was already an adult. I was the one who knew how to budget, how to make a doctor's appointment, how to get a lease. I was the one raising 2 kids, my daughter and him. For years, every time he messed up, it was just a boy's mistake. When I was late on a bill because I was trying to juggle everything, I was irresponsible. He talks about being honest and faithful for the last 5 years like he deserves a medal. For 5 years. We were together for 11. What does he think was happening during the other 6? Our daughter is 7 now. For her, I held it all together. I smiled, I packed lunches, I paid the bills, and I pretended that the man I loved wasn't slowly fading away. The depression started about 10 months ago. And it wasn't just sadness. It was a black hole. It sucked all the light and air out of our house. He says he withdrew, but that's not what it felt like. It felt like he packed his bags and left, but just forgot to take his body with him. I tried everything. I made his favorite meals he wouldn't eat. I planned date nights he'd cancel. I bought him little gifts, stupid things like his favorite candy or a new video game just to see him smile. Each one felt like I was tearing off a little piece of my own soul and handing it to him, hoping it would be enough to bring him back. But it never was. After 10 months, I was empty. I was sleeping next to a body that didn't touch me, living in a house with a man who didn't speak to me unless he had to. I was lonelier in that house with him than I have ever been in my entire life. Getting a new job was about survival. We needed the money badly, but more than that, I needed to breathe. I needed to be in a place where people didn't look at me with pity. And that's where I met him. The other man. There was no lightning bolt. It started with a joke by the coffee machine. Then he asked me how my weekend was and actually listened to the answer. He noticed when I got a haircut. Tiny, insignificant things that felt like a lifeline. He saw times me asterisk. Not a mom, not a nurse, not a walking list of chores. A woman. My boyfriend at home was planning to propose to the shell of a person I'd become. This man at work was talking to the person I used to be. So I started lying, I told my boyfriend I was going to the gym. Instead, I'd go meet this man and we would just sit in his car and talk for an hour. That was it. We'd talk. About work, about music, about nothing. And for that hour, I felt real. I felt like myself. It was wrong, I know it was. But my entire life felt like I was playing a part, and this was the only time I could stop acting. A few weeks ago, I went to his house after work. We were just supposed to talk. It was stupid, I know. A line I shouldn't have crossed. We were sitting in his living room when my phone buzzed. It was my boyfriend. I answered, my heart pounding. His voice was cold flat. "Where are you?" he asked. "I'm at the gym. I told you I lied." My voice was shaking. There was a long pause. "No, you're not," he said. "You're at an apartment on Elm Street. I'm looking at you right now. The tracker on your phone works really well." My blood ran cold. He wasn't calling to connect with me. He didn't ask if something was wrong or why I was lying. He hadn't tried to talk to me in months, not really. Instead, he played detective. He followed a blue dot on a screen because it was easier than looking at my face and seeing how unhappy I was. In that 1 second, I didn't feel guilty. I felt rage. I wasn't his partner. I was a thing to be tracked. A possession. "I'm coming home," I said, my voice as cold as his. I hung up. The other man looked at me, his face full of concern. "What are you going to do?" I stood up and did something I hadn't done in years. I made a decision for me and only me. I turned my phone off. The little screen went black, and just like that, the dot on his map was gone. I was gone. "Let's go for a walk," I said. We went to a park and sat on a bench for hours, not saying much. The sun went down. It was the first time in 10 months that I felt like I could actually breathe. When I finally turned my phone back on late that night, it exploded with notifications. Dozens of missed calls, angry texts, worried texts from my mom, and then a different kind of message. Not a call, but an email from my bank. It was a notification for a deposit. He had sent me $700. There was no explanation, just a transaction. After all the anger, all the tracking, all the silence, his solution was money. I stared at that email on my phone screen for what felt like an hour. $700. He thought he could track me, corner me like a caged animal, and then just send money to make it all go away. A few days before, I'd broken down and finally told him how bad my finances were, how I was scared I couldn't even afford my car payment. I showed him the ugliest, most vulnerable part of myself, and he did nothing. Now, after he'd caught me, this was his answer. Not a conversation. Not a "what's wrong, what do you need?" just a transaction. A payment to fix the broken appliance. In that moment, something inside me snapped. For good. All the years of being the responsible one, of cleaning up his messes, of tending to his emotional needs, while completely ignoring my own, it all came crashing down. He wanted to fix the problem with money, fine. I would use his fix. My hands were shaking, but I opened a hotel booking app. The other man was watching me, his expression unreadable. He didn't say a word. This wasn't about him, and I think he knew it. This was about me. I found a decent, anonymous-looking hotel across town. I put in my details and used the money from my account, his money, to book a room for the night. It felt like lighting a match and dropping it on the life I had so carefully built. It was a horrible, ugly, destructive thing to do. But it was the most honest thing I had done in years. It was a scream. A way of saying, your money can't fix this. Asterisk. You times can't fix this. It's broken. As soon as the confirmation email came through, I went to my contacts. I found his name. My thumb hovered over the block button for a second. This was the point of no return. I was burning the whole bridge down, not just one end of it. I pressed it. Then I blocked him on every social media app I could think of. The silence that followed was terrifying, but it was my own. I had chosen it. The night at the hotel was quiet. We barely spoke. I think he finally understood that he was just a bystander to a much bigger explosion. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 11 years lift off me, only to be replaced by the crushing weight of what I had just done. I wasn't happy. I was just free. And it was awful. The next day, the real world came for me. My mom called, crying, asking what was going on. He had called her, of course. I tried to explain, but how do you explain a decade of slow decay in a 5-minute phone call? He had already painted the picture for everyone. I was the crazy, cheating monster who stole from him. I went to my mom's house and picked up my daughter. The look on her face, the confusion in her eyes is a memory that will be burned into my brain forever. I had to explain that Mommy and Daddy were going to be living in different houses for a while. It was the hardest conversation of my life. Since then, it's been a war. He sends me texts from his friends' phones, emails from new accounts. He calls me a whore, a gold digger, a terrible mother. He posts vague, dramatic things online about betrayal, and everyone rushes to his side to tell him how strong he is. He's building an army, and I'm all alone. He says I'm refusing 50/50 custody. That's his new weapon. It's not true. What I'm refusing is to be railroaded. He wants to set the terms for everything to control this breakup, just like he tried to control me. But what terrifies me is that he's not stable. The man who withdrew from his family for 10 months, who couldn't get out of bed, who thought a phone tracker was a better tool than a conversation, is that the man I'm supposed to trust with my daughter half the time right now? I'm scared. I'm scared of his anger, of his narrative, and of what he might do to win. He's trying to convince the world I'm a monster, and my biggest fear is that he'll convince a judge, and I'll lose my little girl. She is the only part of my life that has ever felt truly and completely mine. He wants everyone to believe this is about the other man. He's probably told you all about him, maybe even that he has his own problems, that he's no prize. And he's right. This isn't a fairy tale where I left a sad man for a perfect one. The other guy was just a raft. He was something to cling to when I was sure I was going to drown. This whole mess was never about him. It was about me. I know how it looks. I took the money. I spent the night in a hotel with another man. I blocked him. I broke our family. I own those choices. They were reckless, and they were born from a place of deep pain and desperation. But he needs to own his part too. He needs to own the 6 years of mistakes before he decided to be faithful. He needs to own the 10 months of emotional abandonment where I felt like a widow in my own home. He needs to own that he saw me as a dot on a map, not a partner in pain. He tells the story of the last few weeks. I am telling the story of the last 11 years. He lost a girlfriend. I feel like I lost my entire identity. I became a nursemaid, a maid, a mother, a wallet, but somewhere along the way I stopped being a woman. I stopped being me. What I did was an attempt, a clumsy, messy, catastrophic attempt to find that person again. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know this wasn't an attack. It was an escape.